Hello and welcome to NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the one and only NXTGEN Racing Touring Car Championship Season 8, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles. We continue the story of our 8th rendition of the NXTCC, and today it is time for round number 7 of 10. We made our way back to Canada for the one and only Montreal Hybrid Street Road Racing Circuit, also known in full as the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, after the country's home hero from which the circuit directly takes its name. It is a circuit which is absolutely unforgiving on both driver and machine, and you'd be easily mistaken for thinking it's a natural road racing course, alternatively for thinking it's a street racing circuit, but it's somewhere in between, hence its hybrid nature. Located on the Isle of Notre Dame and previously known as the Circuit Notre Dame, and nowadays known as the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, is a circuit that is situated in one of the city's national parks, and what it means for our drivers here is that the urban environment is never too far away, but you'd be easily deceived to think that in fact you are in the midst of what is a huge green space surrounded by trees and pleasant trees, but you're also surrounded by one thing that's absolutely crippling to your race success, and that is a number of barriers should you make contact with them. Perhaps this circuit is more notably known for its infamous Wall of Champions, the exit wall coming out to its final corner, which has claimed many a race of a number of championship winning drivers over the years, particularly in the Formula 1 World Championship, including the likes of Michael Schumacher and Jenson Button. But could we see some other drivers stay full victim to the world champions, or could we see some other drivers reign glorious here in Canada? Well, that is what we've got to find out as we get ready to go racing. And speaking of which, we welcome you into this live broadcast from Circuit side, whether you be tuning in via the official NXTGEN Racing media platforms on YouTube, and NXTGEN Racing on YouTube.com, and hello to you guys and girls on YouTube, including Phil McDougall, and also Quartermass Motorsports official channel there, and I hope you're all doing well. Or you could be tuning in via the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group. That's at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, and hello to you guys and girls tuning in via Facebook. And last but not least, you can be tuning in via the unofficial Twitch broadcast on twitch.tv/TX141, and welcome to you guys and girls tuning in via Twitch. But who is TX141, I hear you ask? Well, allow me to introduce myself as your host and commentator for this season. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I will bring you all of your racing action tonight. Speaking of which, in terms of times and schedule, we are scheduled to go as follows today. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Cornet Time, UTC. In just under 17 minutes time, we head into qualifying, our 15-minute session, which will set our grid for our first race of the day. We've got 3 races, as always. This is another triple head sprint round, whereby our first race, and indeed all of our races, will be 11 laps in length, and our first race is due to get underway at 8:15. After race number 1, we'll take a brief breather before returning for the build-up to race number 2 at just before 9 o'clock this evening. Then we'll rinse and repeat, but not without the all-important partial reverse grid draw, as we then make our way into race number 3, with the gridding procedure due to get underway just slightly after 9:45 this evening. But as we can see in the background, it is a rainy day here at Montreal, albeit the weather forecast showing it would seem that rain is due to fall early, and it's already fallen on the circuit, but then we could be seeing a drying circuit throughout the remainder of the day, so therefore it could be challenging conditions to begin the story with. But you can see as the racing goes on today, it becomes a much slicker surface to race on, and we'll see the very best of our drivers if they're not able to master the wet conditions. But before we come on to our racing for today, let's regale you the story so far this season. And we start off by taking a look back at the calendar, and we can see we've made our way all the way to the 21st of January. 2025 continues to move forward, and it's crazy to think we're already over halfway through the first month of the year. Time is flying, and we've flown away to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Last time out, in round number 6, we were at the Knockhill Racing Circuit in Scotland, and there we got to see some absolutely brilliant battling action, and Dan Mould in particular absolutely dominating the way in the first 2 races, and Mikey Doble taking a plethora of points in the pro class and absolutely added to his championship tally. And there were some absolute heroics as well from home hero Stuart Wyness in the Prime class, who really led the way alongside his teammate of what was the other Track Scotland machine, being piloted by none other than Kieran Smart, and Track Scotland making that a 1-2 in 2 out of 3 races. But it's round 7 today here in Canada, and after today we've got 3 more rounds to go, including next week our first ever visit to the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom, and that's on the 28th of January at the Thruxton Circuit. And then we make our way down under to Australia for our final 2 rounds of the season. Round number 19, our drivers make the way on the 4th of February to the Sandown International Motor Raceway, after which we go from the home of horsepower to what is the battle over the mountain 14. And indeed, many will know it as Bathurst, but it's known for as the Mount Panorama Circuit. And on the 11th of February, we will be crowning our champions in what will be our feature race special finale. But we still got some way to go, and as we come to today, how do we go into today when it comes to championship points? Well, as far as the Drivers' Championship overall is concerned, we can see Mikey Doble has returned to the top by 20 points over Jaroslaw Cebula. These two continue to oscillate back and forth. It was Cebula leading going into the previous round, but Doble has come out ahead at Knockhill and now is looking to try and hold on to that lead. Could we see it swing back and forth? Well, we don't quite know, but what we do know is look at that gap to Adam Delwin in P3 of 563 points, and with the best part there, 124 points between him and Cebula, it does seem to be now a championship that has become a two-horse race. Delwin will be looking to meanwhile hold on to P3 as a minimum, ahead of Jamie Dory, who's moved back to P4, ahead of William Guthrie, the full Tilby Motorsport driver, continuing to enshrine himself inside the top 5. Benjamin McCluskey is only a further 4 points behind, and Andrew Pike a further 14, with Dan Mould as well keeping it right in the hunt there for a top 5 finish at the end of this season, and Nick Clewin's only a further 13 points off. Lee Horn, meanwhile, wraps up the top 10. Outside the top 10, and really it being a story of two halves in that top 10, 2 drivers fighting for the championship, and the other 8 fighting for that third place spot, or at least it would seem. We look to P11 best of the rest, and Ben Altrier is only outside the top 10 based on result countback versus Lee Horn, and could we see him move into the top 10? Well, Stuart Winus meanwhile has catapulted his way into lead of the Prime drivers overall thanks to his brilliant results at Knockhill of 380 points, 9 ahead of Isaac Doble. And it's Daniel Downing, the pro driver there, who falls to P14, not on the grid anymore this season due to needing to spend more time with his newly born son, and who can be angry at him in the fact wanting to spend time with his newborn child. And Dan, if you are tuning in tonight, we wish you all the best. I hope you're doing well and the little one's doing well as well. But now he falls into the clutches of teammate Sam Van Olst, who sits P15 on 336 points. Meanwhile, Alex Meredith sits P16 ahead of Gavin Gardner, with Tom Davidson, Reese Watt and Ben Gregory completing the top 20. And outside the top 20, we have Matthew Sheraton P21 ahead of Wayne Douglas, with Kieran Smart in what is P23 ahead of Russell Fowler, and Michael Lees completes the top 25. The pro Joe Doble sits in P26 in what has been a rather frustrating season for the Doble sim racing driver. The same could be said for Toby Prosser in P27, who feels though he should be in the top 20 right now, given some of his heroic performances this season. There's Alan McCain, Sam Smith and Lewis Delman to complete your top 30. Outside the top 30, Sam Bradley in P31, who in the build-up to today was saying that he feels as though he's been right in the middle of the field this season. Indeed, he's pretty much slap bang in the middle of the field there in the overall championship standings, and therefore he continues to try and make his way into that top 30, ahead of Duncan Rayes, with Andy Fox, Jake Pitt, Matt Emmons, Jack Osborne, Jonathan Collins, Marcel Fritsch, your leading AM driver there, ahead of Eduardo Gonzaga and Gabriel Yumez completing your top 40. And in fact, the correction there is the fact that Jonathan Collins is your leading AM driver inside the overall championship. Outside the top 40, Mark Sykes sits in P41 ahead of Josh Brown, with James Spencer Scout in P43 ahead of Luca Monroe. Then we have Daniel Fritz, Kevin Smith, Dylan Hunter, who really put on an absolutely brilliant performance at Knockhill, bringing home his best results of the season. There's Anthony Hilton ahead of Sean Dobie and Lewis Mason to complete the top 50. And outside the top 50, let's not forget about them: Sammy Reba, Andy Chell, Craig Tillerson, Jonathan Berry, Gabriel Papacon-Stantanu, Mike Kurtler, Gilberto Struck, Joshua Boot, Shane Abbott, and last but not least, Mark Kent, who I suspect might be tuning in today. It will help not enable him to have raced the entirety of the season, but to be fair, there's a special spot on the grid for the full Tilby Motorsport driver, and well, he'll know that as much as all the other drivers on the grid, and we look forward to the day he returns. We're carrying on to the Pro-Am Championship. When the points are adjusted for our Pro-Am class drivers' finishing positions, Stuart Winus now leads by 43 points. Reese Watt has fallen to P2, but Reese Watt and the JDOM Motorsport machine has been one of those drivers who's really been unexceptional this season, and if anything, he has had a bit of a background role, but going into Knockhill, he was leading the championship given his consistency. But given an absolutely brilliant and bolstering set of points for Winus, can he hold on given this is the first time he's leading the Pro-Am Championship this season, with only 3 rounds to go after today? Sam Van Olst, meanwhile, sits in P3, ahead of Ben Gregory. Then we have Russell Fowler in P5, the Verano Esports driver, finding himself once again at the tail end of the top 5 and hoping for a little bit more. Kieran Smart sits in P6, frustrated at what could have been in race number 3, but it wasn't to be at Knockhill, and that's why he hasn't moved into the top 5, but still ahead of Matthew Sheraton by the best part there of almost 20 points, with Sam Smith, Alan McCain and Michael Lees completing your top 10. Is there a further 2 points to Lewis Delman in P11, who is best of the rest, and the SO NXTGEN Gold driver looking to fight his way into that top 10. He's ahead of Duncan Rise, with Sam Bradley P13 ahead of Toby Prosser, and then Jake Pitt in P15 on 367 points, has a comfortable 50-point gap over teammate James Spencer-Scout, with Matt Emmons, Gilberto Struck, Jack Osborne and Anthony Hilton completing your top 20 of the Pro-Ams. And then we come on to the AM class, last but not least, and here we can see, despite the points being the opposite way round, it should be Marcel Fritsch with 781 points then. We do apologise for that, but he still holds a rather comfortable advantage right at the top over Gabriel Yilmaz. However, the one thing is here, can Fritsch continue this consistent run all the way through to the end? He's built up an advantage, but of course, the bigger the advantage, the easier it is to take your foot off the gas, and that's when the mistakes come, and Yilmaz will be looking to capitalise on that. Jonathan Collins as well, sitting in P3, the Whiskey Runners racing with NXTGEN Orange Driver is looking to chase down the top two after what has been a frustrating mid-part of his season, and Lewis Mason and Josh Brown are not too far off the hunt. Sammy Ariba for Quartermaster Motorsport sits P6 as he rises his way up through the ranks, now ahead of Mark Sykes by the best part there of what is, I do believe, 25 points. Well, in fact, that's 35 points. Let's do the maths right. And then it's Kevin Smith, Eduardo Gonzaga, and Sean Doby complete the top 10. We may not see Sean Doby on the grid for too long today. He is having some technical issues from what we're hearing with regards to his car. But if they are able to get those technical issues under control, then we will see the ATEC racing machine continue its way all the way through the racing today, and that'd be great to see. In P11, it's Andy Chell on 422 points, only 2 behind Doby, so their battle for a top 10 slot could really come under threat today. And Dylan Hunter moves to P12 after that great set of results, the start of the AM class last time out in Knockhill, and he's moving towards that top 10 finish as quickly as he possibly can. Craig Tillison sits in P13 ahead of Jonathan Berry, and it's Gabriel Papaconstantin who completes the AM top 15, with Mark Kent and Daniel Fritz wrapping up the AM standings. Well, what about the teams, I hear you ask? Well, here are the teams at championship standings. And as we can see, NXTGEN Pink continue to lead on 1,185 points over SRO and NXTGEN Gold at 799. If anything, it seems as though the 4-time champions are on course to make it a 5-time championship title, albeit SRO and NXTGEN Gold right now, I think will be focusing more and more and holding on to P2 and keeping Doble racing behind in what will be an upending of the status quo. Full Tilt Motorsport as well, you can see that only a further 28 points adrift, and then we do have the best part of 137 points to Goldwing Motorsport. But again, look at the battle for P5. It's Goldwing versus the Sim Racing Collective of iRacing Esports and NXTGEN Orange and Whiskey Runners all in the mix, and it'd be rude to exclude Aztec Race and Track Scotland as they fight for the bottom end of the top 10. Outside the top 10 for the 440 to Track Scotland, it's JW Motorsports and 392 as the fight for that final spot in the top 10 definitely is firing up. And then we can see Rhino Esports just ahead of Rhino Academy, with National Racing Team and Atomic Esport completing the top 15. And then to wrap up the team standings, it's Mellow Motorsports head of Quartermaster Motorsport, with SJC Racing with 991 Racing completing those with points to their name, albeit we forgot their 88 Tech Racing who have got 8 points after those brilliant results they've had in the last couple of rounds. And then we can see 287 at Motorsport with Autofocus Motorsport Media wrapping up the team standings. But coming on to our circuit for today, well, it is the one and only Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. The Grand Prix layout will play host to our drives and fade to iRacing for the brilliant circuit map that does accompany the fantastic iRacing simulator. This circuit, located in the park formerly known as Parc Jean Drapeau, in what is the city limits of Montreal in the state of Quebec in Canada, or the Quebec region of the Canadian country. It is a circuit that definitely is imprinted in the minds of many a motorsporting fan. For its infamous 14 corners are typified by the combination of what is a number of chicanes, followed up by extended acceleration zones and long straights. Perhaps most notably as well, also a couple of hairpins to throw into the mix. And when you mix all that together, it is a circuit that's gradually evolved over time to become a power circuit. And we could expect our Audi RS3 drives to go quite strongly here. However, it'll depend on the conditions. As our drives roar the way down the start-finish straight and in towards Raj, then at turns 1 and 2, they'll find their ability to manage direction change being pushed to the absolute limit for the first time. And as they exit turn 2, it's then the short run up towards the first of many a chicane at turns 3 and 4. We'll see the repeat for the long right-hander at turn number 5, which will be flat out if our drives are in single file. And as they come in towards the second chicane at turns 6 and 7, the most aggressive of the chicanes, given the amount of radius, or in fact circumference our drives have to turn through. But as they make the way out of the turn 6-7 chicane, it's then a quick run down towards turns 8 and 9. And as the drives charge way out, it'll be the run down towards the letter pin there, hairpin down at turn number 10. As they come out of the right-hander, the slightest corner on the circuit, they'll make the way for the kink of 11 and the kink of 12 onto the Casino Straight, or the Droit du Casino, and as they make the way onwards towards the final 2 corners, well, that's where the world champion lies, in the 4th and final notable chicane on this circuit, and well, we'll have to wait and see who's going to be brave enough to go too wide through there. We're going on to our rules because, of course, we can't go racing without them. Setup-wise, it's a fixed setup series with all setups provided to our drivers ahead of each and every race and round. Driver classes were finalised as the conclusion of round number 3. And in terms of how we set the grid for the races, a reminder, race 1's grid is based on qualifying. The race 2 grid is based on the results of race number 1, where we take the winner, we put them on pole, and then the rest of the field follows. And the race 3 grid shall be a partial reverse grid between the positions of P13 and P23, as based on the results of race number 2, and we draw the reversal position from the commentary booth live on air. Each driver has one fast repair available in each of our races, and each race shall conclude after either the allotted lap amount, which is 11 laps, or 30 minutes, whichever expires first. On top of that as well, race journey is in effect. We have our independent race director watching out for track limit infringements and the need to deploy the safety car, and you can see the penalties on screen there for track limit infringements, all the way from a warning up to a drive-through penalty that must be served within 3 laps of being awarded. Now, coming on to success ballast, we also do have this in continual effect for the overall championship and also for the Prime and AM Drivers' Championship class standings. And it will be applied on an iterative basis for qualifying in race number 1 based on results going into this round, and then we update it based on results of race 1 for race 2 and for race 3 based on race number 2. And we'll be seeing a few drivers take the newcomer success ballast going into the course of this season, given they'll be new on the grid. And we have one driver who is returning to the grid today, and we'll introduce them very shortly. And I do believe they are taking the maximum success ballast, and you may be able to guess who it is already, because they are a 2-time NXTCC champion. We thought it only fair they take the maximum weight into racing. And well, there you can see all the weights on screen, ladies and gentlemen. And well, if you want to make a quick note, be sure to pause the broadcast right now, because we're not going to store on this any longer. We're going to head back to circuit side here as all of our drivers get themselves absolutely set. And well, as they make the way around, we do look to the car of Jamie Dory, who's taking a little bit of a scenic route there and skipping his way past what is the third of the chicanes. And I think it might be a situation whereby he's going a little bit too much speed on the circuit. It seems to be drying. There's no falling rain per se, but then again, this might be a circuit that drives very gradually. Quite a low ambient temperature for this time of year, and well, therefore it does mean that rainwater is going to have to be displaced by the heat of our drivers driving around the circuit rather than natural evaporation from a little bit of temperature. But as we do see Dory making his way up through it, let's take a look at that weather on the right hand side of your screen. And as you can see there, an ambient temperature right now of 80 degrees centigrade, but a track temperature of 70 degrees centigrade. So it does mean this standing water, or the water that's fallen on the circuit, will take some time to shift. But we've had some rainfall just before qualifying, so therefore qualifying really could become a session about who is out there at the time when the circuit is at its most optimum in terms of dryness, and being able to go onto what will be the dry tide towards the end of the qualifying session could really be the difference between being on pole and being towards the back of the respective class order. But as our drivers continue to get these practice laps, we've got 3 minutes left on the clock, and indeed accurately guessed there by none other than Mark Kent in the YouTube chat, we have the return of this man, a 2-time NXTCC champion in the form of Wojciech Swierdaj, champion from what was season 6 and season 7, almost a 3-time champion given the fact he had a very close run with Mikey Doble in season 5, and that was in Swierdaj's debut season, if my memory serves me correctly, but Mikey Doble in the end taking the crown by what was, if not result countback, the best part of only 2 points between them. In fact, the result countback was when Jamie Dory secured his 2nd title, now I think about it, and that was based on the number of 2nd place finishes between the two of them, because they had an equal number of wins and an equal number of points. But Swierdaj was the man to take it in season 6 for the first time, and then did so again in season 7. In the season last time out, we just seemed to be on a different planet compared to his rivals, and it's great to see him back for Semper Racing, flying the official colours of the Polish team in the number 80 Veloster. But we should point out, given the fact that you can see there already this practice session is the fastest drivers out there, he has been informed that he will be a guest driver for this season, given he's coming into the season with the best part of what is 60% of the season complete, and therefore he will not be scoring any points. And he's also been advised to the fact that there are championship battles going on, and therefore he's not too heavily with them. But to be fair, a seasoned veteran like Wojciech Swierdaj, he'll know all that already, and he'll know at the same time he'll want to go for victory, but he'll also know to keep the racing fair and sensible, given the fact that he's not fighting for points, he's just fighting for a little bit of fun out there, whereas a number of drivers will be giving it absolutely everything to become an NXTCC champion or a multi-time champion. If you're the likes of Mikey Doble, we'll be looking to try and make it 4 titles in 8 seasons. 50% title statistic is something absolutely incredible to behold. But we only do have 1.5 minutes left now before we do go into that qualifying session, and where circuit is continuing to dry up, we do look at some other drivers, including Gabriel Yilmaz, Aztec Racing, as we say hello there to Rano Esports in the Facebook chat. I'm doing very well, thank you, Rano Esports, and I hope you're keeping well as well, and I do bet you're betting on what is the Verano Esports and Academy drivers. Have a good day today, and well, Gabriel Umas will be one of those drivers in the AM cars trying to get one step ahead of the Verano Academy drivers. And speaking of Verano Academy drivers, well, the biggest name, of course, in the AM standards is this man who Umas is trying to chase down, Marcel Fridge, the Verano Academy driver, running in a livery which is dedicated to his previous team at WS Racing Esports. But the Austrian driver here, he may have changed his team. He hasn't changed his colours, but to be fair, one thing that's definitely changed over the course of the last couple of seasons is how he has moved his way up the running order. And I can tell you one thing, he has absolutely been flying this season, and it would seem as though in the AM class at least he has been nearly untouchable. We'll have to wait to see whether that is going to be the story of his season, or whether it may be one of those situations whereby today we could see a strike back. Well, we will find out in due course, ladies and gentlemen, and we haven't got long to find out. As we say hello in the YouTube chat there, who's new to tune into NXTCC, to Antonio Nadeo, or aka TJ Nadeo. And Antonio, if you're asking in terms of number of laps we can expect, it's 11 laps in each race, or 30 minutes of racing, whichever expires first, although we are expecting the laps to expire first, given the fact we are running effectively to the equivalent of BTCC rules in terms of the races can run for a preset period of time. And while the drivers make their way on around, well, it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. An hour has passed of practice for our drivers, but now they have 15 minutes to try and deliver the goods. But who will be on pole? That's the big question, and it's time for us to find out. As our drivers begin to make their way into the pit lane, they begin to decide what tyre to go on. Well, the majority will be going to the wet tyre immediately in this qualifying session, and they will be looking to trickle their way around here on what is going to be a very trepid trip around the circuit to try and find out exactly when that is going to transition and when the circuit is time for the dry tyre. But as they roar the way on around here, well, what can we expect in qualifying beyond the obvious weather conditions? Well, speaking to a number of drivers that we moved up to today, a number of them were saying to me, and you may recall the interview we had after the race at Knockhill with Mikey Doble after round number 6 concluded, we are expecting, given this is a power circuit, for the Audi RS3s, at least on paper, to be the strongest car. Speaking of the Audi RS3s, it is none other than three-time champion Mikey Doble as he makes his way from turn number 5. However, we need to caveat this. In the dry, the Audi is able to get that power down like nobody else can. In the wet, meanwhile, what I've also been hearing from some of the drivers, and I had the pleasure of catching up with Jamie down in the garage in the build-up to today, he was saying to me about the fact the Audi really seems to struggle when you've got these wet conditions and looking down the torque it has in the front wheel. All these touring car racing machines, these TCR cars, of course, being what is front engine, front wheel drive, and therefore these Audis have got a lot of power to deploy, but they've also got to be able to lay it down. You need to be very smooth on the throttle with the Audi in order to get the best out of it in the wet compared to its rivals. As compared to the likes of, say, the Honda, which is the opposite end of the spectrum, one being shown here by our pro driver from TSRC, or the Sim Racing Collective, Tom Davison, it is a car whereby you don't have too much power to deploy by comparison. This is the cornering and handling car and the boldest on the brakes as well. We have normally seen the Hondas go quite strongly in the wet, as did the Hyundai Velosters, but the Elantra being somewhere in between. As we also say hello on the YouTube channel to Average Joe, I believe that might be Daniel Fritz, of course, tuning in from the other side of the world, all the way from down under in Australia, and I hope you're doing it well, Average Joe. And we also say hello in the YouTube chat. That's Ryan Barley, who's asking the big question, how many Aztec racing cars are there today? Well, I've already seen at least 5 down the circuit. We do see one of them there, starting to make their way onto their maiden flying lap in qualifying, and that is none other than Lewis Mason, as he makes his way out onto the start-finish line straight from the chicane. And as he does so, he goes into his first flying lap. I suspect it's going to take multiple laps for our drivers to be able to get some temperature in those tyres. And well, can you imagine what it's going to be like as well in our 3 11-lap races if we do have the wet conditions, or at least a wet circuit for race number 1? And well, what will become of it? That is a little bit further down the road here. We've still got a place to go. We get to race number 1. We've still got a lot of qualifying to go. And well, as our drivers make their way onto their first flying laps, we may be also wondering at the moment, how our drivers feeling with regards to the circuit. In terms of those feelings, I didn't have the chance to catch up with too many of our drivers in the build-up to today. They're very busy focusing on practicing, but I can tell you, as we look to Andy Fox, the Boston driver for Doble Motorcycles, he was saying to me about the fact that he really is hoping he can just get rid of the lap 1 curse that has blighted him over multiple rounds this season so far. If you're looking at a driver who seems to have taken all the bad luck of everybody in the process, the whole grid, he seems to be the man, Andy, in the number 21, in the fact in the last 3 round, his lap run every race has seen him involved in some sort of incident, and most of the time it has been major incidents, not saying they're his fault, but he's been involved in incidents which have seen him pushed all the way to the back of the grid and then have to do all the hard work each and every time. And well, he takes a long way across the grass there at what was the third chicane. I think currently speed standing once there, coming under the underpass. Well, for Fox, it's going to be about resetting and now getting his head back in the game once again. Now, one other conundrum we do need to think about here with regards to this qualifying session is we do have qualifying bans, and therefore pit lane starts for race number 1 in effect for 4 drivers: Adam Delman, Kevin Smith, Dan Mould and Sam Van Olst, and that's why you may be noticing there's an absence of 2 of our pro drivers in the form of Delman and Mould. And we are also missing Sam Van Olst in that equation, and we've also got the AM driver Kevin Smith, who is missing, and they've received this qualifying ban due to a number of penalties that have been awarded over the rounds so far this season. So the new penalty system that was brought in for season 7, or sorry, for season 8 I should say, let's get our numbers right, now really starting to take a hold on the paddock, and will therefore, it's a bit unfortunate we can't see this qualifying session, but be assured of the fact we'll try to roll their way up the running order once we do go green flag racing in race number 1. And as we can see, Fox making his way on down there, of course, an invalidated laps. Now he'll go on to another flying lap. The first lap and it's Benjamin McCluskey who sets the gauntlet down there on a 156.747. And we'll be looking to try and go a little bit quicker as time continues to crawl on, and as he makes his way under the bridge once again into the chicane, coming down into what will be at the turn 7-8 chicane, and on for it. In fact, I do believe that's turn 9 out of now. I get my numbers correct. Well, he makes his way on out there. It is all going to be about trying to nail that braking zone down into what will be the hairpin as he comes down towards the braking zone here, and will just smooths the car out into the middle of the road. And well, as he does so there, McCluskey really has been one of those drivers in the NXTCC ever since season 1, whereby you can never truly underestimate him. He's not been in the spotlight necessarily compared to some of his teammates in NXTGEN Pink, such as Jamie Dory or Gavin Gardner for their heroics. But the flip side of the coin is, if you want a very reliable driver who can always bring you those points and also those occasional wins out of nowhere, then this is the man, McCluskey, as he makes his way onwards towards the final 2 quarters. And as he does so, McCluskey right now definitely looking composed as he rides his way over the curbs there, and we're very shortly we'll get an onboard lap with our pro driver, and he takes it across line and onto another flyer. Making his way down towards turn number 1, and looking to his right hand side here, and he'll be using the escape roads down on the right as his brake marker, going all the way down to 2nd gear and keeping it nice and tight here into turn number 2. Down to 1st gear, mounts the curb slightly as he rolls off of it, and now onwards towards what will be turn number 3. Heading up towards the first of the numerous chicanes, he'll look to his left-hand side for his brake marker, and it will be just before the 1 board there, coming down the gearbox to 2nd gear, straight line between the 2 apexes, using the first apex curve to rotate the car, and as he exits out, being quite conservative, not getting too close to the exit wall, given the standing water to be on the curve, and you can see the dry line forming there, as he now makes his way into turn 6 and 7, braking nice and early, down to 1st gear again. You need 1st gear here in order to get all the rotation, as he now makes his way out of the right-hander of turn number 7, and all the way up towards turns 8 and 9 he'll go. It's a flat-out run for a period of time, and as he builds his way up towards what will be 5th gear, he'll make his way into the 2nd from top gear, and he'll head under the bridge, braking just as he makes his way under the bridge there, coming down to 2nd gear, plenty of apex curve to enter the chicane, and tries to straight line his way up over the 2nd apex, almost cutting off the chicane in the way, and now down towards the turn 10 hairpin. Here it's all going to be about shortening that run to the hairpin as much as possible, albeit also being wary of that standing water, and in the end positioning the car in the middle of the road initially for the braking point, down to 1st gear. We'll normally see our drivers in the dry stay over to the left-hand side unless they're battling, as he exits the corner. A bit of wheel spin there, you could see it briefly on the rev gauge in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, whereby trying to move out of 1st into 2nd, always bouncing off the limiter, and now as he heads onwards on towards the Casino Straight, well now it's a flat-out run all the way, and we will see the car make its way into top gear or thereabouts as he gets ready for the infamous chicane, the turn 13-14 chicane. He's in 5th gear currently, and in fact stays in 5th all the way to limiter as he now brakes 100 metres from corner entry down to 2nd gear, mounts those curves, and absolutely stamps back on the throttle. It's a smooth lap there from Benjamin McCluskey. Any smoother, you could say he's a smooth criminal, and as he makes his way up towards the timeline, what's it going to be this time around? Well, it is going to be P2. He doesn't improve in terms of his overall position, but he improves his lap time to 56.057, and with Wojciech Swierdowicz set the bar now at 55.854, but McCluskey being the closest to challenge him, and Jamie Dory moves up to P3. and Dory at this point. Well, it does look as though right now NXTGEN Pink may be in control of this qualifying session outside of the Semper racing car Spirit Age. But more lap times are coming in. We've been talking a lot about our pros. Let's talk a little bit about our primes. For a time, Jules Wine is the leading pro-am driver in the championship, was leading in the qualifying session provisionally, but now it does seem for the track Scotland driver who goes sideways there over turn 14. It's now Ben Gregory who's taken over with that provisional pro-am pole slot of P5, and well, from them, it does look as though it's quite intermingling of what is the pros and the pros in the Kieran Smart now moves up to P4. And the track Scotland driver tucked into the tie of his teammate here, a little bit of teamwork going on, but I wouldn't be surprised as well, given the fact that they've got the time around him. You can get quite a few laps in, even with the slower lap times due to the wet conditions. Well, it's therefore working that to their advantage to do a little bit of slipstreaming in the run, particularly out of turn 10 down towards the final two corners of 13 and 14, just to gain that overrun time. Smart once again in the tow here as he makes his way around through turn 5 in towards 6 and 7, and I get the feeling that right now it's Track Scotland trying to go for a 1-2 in qualifying once again in the prime class, and perhaps trying to make it another 1-2 in the race, or at least race number 1. But pulls the 4, and indeed a bit of a moment whereby we did see what was 8 of our AM drivers all together in the timing standings, and at the head of the pack was Craig Tillotson. Well, since then Dylan Hunter has now broken the trend and moved his way out to 7 as Hunter, and well, I can tell you one thing, right now the American driver is absolutely bouncy in the interview room last time out of Knockhill, and the fact you could feel it in his voice, having claimed his first AM win at Knockhill in what was a deserved driver. It was almost 2 AM wins, but was to miss out in race number 2. Well, he managed to pull it off again in race number 3, and Hunter right now, well, not too far away from where he's based in, I believe, the US state of Wisconsin, so only having to travel north, albeit I say only having to travel north. Indeed, the sense of scale in terms of miles or kilometres between states and countries of the North American continent compared to, say, in the United Kingdom is something to behold. But right now, Hunter absolutely flying high on what is the closest to a home race of the season, and well, it's going to be looking good for the DH racing car if things continue on this way. And now in terms of the tyres, the only driver out there on which the dry tyre, the slick tyre at the moment, is Lee Horn, it would seem. So Horn deciding to gamble now with 4.5 minutes to go. Perhaps he feels as though he can move up to P9. He's got nothing to lose by trying to take a gamble. We'll have to wait and see. And I can tell you that Daniel Fritz's car is down in the pit lane as well, and therefore, as the drivers made their way through, I can also say that Jamie Dory has just jumped onto slick tyres as well, and therefore it might be the scenario whereby Sam Bradley's also doing the same as I look at my content booth window, and in fact I think we can get a camera shot there. The car's up on the jack, so they are switching ASO and Extra Gold to put a set of slicks on here. Could it be that there's going to be a last minute dash to get onto the slicks to get the optimum lap time? Well, if so, this could definitely become a qualifying session whereby we suddenly get an upending of the results right before we're done. Craig Tillotson as well, his own work done there, the camera being obscured to a degree, but he's definitely having the car service, and those dries are going on, and the Verona Academy driver deciding to go all in on it here, as meanwhile we look back to the original poleman at the moment, our guest driver of Wojciech Swierdowicz, and well, being the best part of the 10th, 3rd Benjamin McCluskey, but McCluskey and Swierdowicz absolutely exchanging lap times, and it's a good 4/10 of a second to Mikey Doble with P3, but given that Mikey Doble does have the maximum success balance in that Audi RS3, well, to put himself on that second row of the grid if it's finished as they currently stand, that would be an absolute achievement without a doubt. But he draws his way along and heading all the way up. What I do believe, ladies and gents, we might be having some slight issues with regards to what is the output of the stream in terms of what is the bandwidth for the moment. We are going to take a look at what's happened, because it does seem as though the bandwidth has dropped compared to what we would normally be outputting at, and we do apologise for that, and while we are seeing what we can do in order to be able to improve that. Not quite sure what's happened there, but I think we may now get our stream quality back to where it was previously. Do let us know there if something has changed, but we are a little bit surprised if so in terms of that's happened. But these things do happen every so often, but hopefully the output of the stream now is back up to what is normally expected. But as the drivers continue the way through, Isaac Doble meanwhile makes his way into original pole, and he's crept that out of nowhere, has the Doble Sim Racing driver, and what, only 2,000 faster than Wojciech Swierdowicz, still on the wet tyre, and therefore a lot of our drivers right now, I think, just trying to keep their head in the space of what is trying to deliver those lap times. It's the long distant camera view as he makes his way towards what is turns at number 8 and 9 as he comes on through there. Well, right now Isaac Doble absolutely delivering, and as he does so, he makes his way on towards the next corners. Well, right now for all the drivers here, it is looking as though it's getting to the crunch end of qualifying. Jamie Dory still P7, but on those slick tyres. And we also say hello there to True1 in the YouTube chat. And Ice Doble comes on down here. And well, Joe Doble now moves up to P4. And well, that's a 56.161 for what is the Doble Sim Racing drive. So Doble Sim Racing leaving it late in the day, but everyone's starting to improve here. Dylan Hunter, meanwhile, in the AM class, is still just ahead of Craig Tillotson by what is 3.5 attempts this time. Tillotson is trying to improve on an outlap, and well, we do have what is a purple sector 2 for Lee Horn as he makes his way on towards what he turns 13 and 14. Could Lee Horn have been the one to set the trend right at the end as he makes his way on down towards what will be turns 13 and 14. Straight through the right into left here. Lee Horn absolutely now going all in right towards the end, and well, he's been the fastest of everybody in sector number 2, I do believe. And well, if that stands into sector 3, could he suddenly spring up from P11? Well, here we go. As he crosses the line, he goes P9 on 56.496, so it's not quite enough yet on the dry tiny. He'll get one more lap in. Jamie Dory's in P8. Alex Meredith has just moved up to P10, and well, Meredith now has made a bit more progress up the running order, and well, as he makes his way on out of turn 2 up towards 3. We do see the feedback there from Mark Ken in the YouTube chat about the microphone volume being a little bit quieter compared to what is the sound of the cars, and we have just tried to boost that in the background, so do let us know if there's been any difference. If not, we'll look at that in between races 1 and 2. But staying here now on what exactly is happening, well, we can see that Kieran Smart as well moves up to P7, albeit he's on the wet tyre. He did go purple in sector 1 in the Pro class out of all the Pro drivers, but finds a little bit of traffic there as he comes on out of what's turn number 2, so that is going to upend what will be his final lap of this session. And as he roars his way on into what is turns 3 and 4, well, right now all the drivers, I think, just trying to find that last little gasp of time. And well, speaking of gasps of time, as the checker flag comes out in this qualifying session, Jamie Dory cross the line. Has he improved from P8? The answer is no. Jaroslaw Cebula, his teammate behind, does the P13 on 56.613, but Cebula a long way away from Mikey Doble in this qualifying order, it has to be said. Meanwhile, Lee Horn has gone purple in sector 1. He is at the moment, as he makes his way out of turn number 10, he's gone purple in sector 2 as well. Could Horn potentially have got it absolutely right at the end? He's also got a little bit of tow in front of him, I do believe, over the back of what might be the car Mikey Doble, who's on the wet tyre. And Horn right now in what is the orange Honda Civic Type R FKA as he roars his way on down the start-finish straight. Well, has Horn absolutely nailed this? Well, we'll have to wait and see as McCluskey goes the fastest of everybody at 55.763. But this seems to be the danger, man, as everybody's improving out there on ways of circuit. It's almost drying now, and well, as he comes across the line, we can see Sweardike across the line, he goes pole. What about Horn meanwhile? He's still at P10, and well, he goes up to pole position. Lee Horn on the dry tyre gambled it, and it's a 54.934 there, the only 54, half a second. And Lee Horn, who many of you may remember, pulled off that surprise victory in our race, our wet to dry race at what Suzuka last season. Lee Horn is the man of changing conditions, because he has stolen away pole position. Wojciech Sweardike may have been dominating the majority of the session, but Lee Horn took the opportunity and made it count. And well, meanwhile in the Prime class, Kieran Smart looks to have taken what will be Prime pole by the best part there of what will be a 10th over Ben Gregory, P10 to P14 between the two drivers. And meanwhile in the AM class, Dylan Hunter, I think, has done enough as he makes his way on down the final stretch, heading up towards what will be turns 13 and 14. And as he comes on down here, well, what's it going to be for Hunter as he heads into the braking zone? We'll have to wait and see whether he is going to be able to find a little bit more time before all said and done. In fact, no, he comes into the pit lane. Andy Shell, meanwhile, also in. So Andy, back from sickness last time out, wasn't able to make it onto the grid at Knockhill. Well, it is Andy Shell who's just missed out versus Dylan Hunter. But that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And well, let's make our way to the grid for our first of our 3 races for today. So after an absolutely incredible qualifying session, which was all about gambling on the conditions, well, here we see how our drivers line up for race number 1 of round 7 of season 8 of the NXTCC, powered by Doble Motorcycles. It is Lee Horn who lines up on pole position for NextGen Orange Whiskey Runners Racing by half a second over Semper Racing's Wojciech Sweardike. In P3, it's Mikey Doble for Doble Sim Racing, the championship leader coming into today. He's looking good there on that second row. He's in the company of Benjamin McCluskey at P4 for NextGen Pink. And then on row number 3, it's Isaac Doble for Doble Sim Racing, who is in the company of teammate Joe Doble. And it's the best qualifying session we have seen for Doble Sim Racing in some time. Alex Meredith starts his day P7 for NextGen Orange Whiskey Runners Racing ahead of William Guthrie Guthrie for Full Tilt Motorsport. And well, it's going to be close between them as it will be for Wayne Douglas, who starts P9. The Douglas Motorsport driver there, just inching ahead of Kieran Smart. The Prime Polster, who starts P10 for Track Scotland. P11, best of rest, it's Andrew Pyatt for the Sim Racing Collective, making a habit of qualifying within the top 6 rows, particularly on rows 5 and 6, and the Briton will be joined by the Englishman of Jamie Dory alongside P12 for NXTGEN Ping. On row at number 7, it's Ben Altrier for Full Tilt Motorsport ahead of Ben Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport. The two teammates together, not quite able to make it into the top 10 unlike Guthrie, but still they give it their best from what is row 7. Gavin Garner starts his day P15 for NXTGEN Ping ahead of Jaroslaw Cebula, his teammate alongside. And then we do see Russell Fowler P17 for Rano Esports ahead of Stuart Winus for Track Scotland. Matthew Sheraton starts the day P19 for Aztec Racing and ahead of Tom Davidson for the Sim Racing Collective, who completes your top 20. P21, it's Michael Lees for JWM Motorsport ahead of Sam Smith for Iris Esports. Then we do have Reese Watt, P23 for JWM Motorsport ahead of Sam Bradley for SO NXTGEN Gold. And then we do see it behind them on row number 13, Alan McCain for Iris Esports and Lewis Delman for SO NXTGEN Gold. Nick Clewin starts P27 for Iris Esports ahead of Andy Fox. The Goldwing Motorsport driver once again finds himself qualifying well out of position, but what will be able to do from further down the order, that will be the big question. And then we do have completing your top 30, the Ampole sitter Dylan Hunter for DH Racing, and he took pole position by 2 thousandths over Andy Chell, who missed out on his maiden pole position in the AM class for Quartermass Motorsport. P31, it's James Spencer's-Gal for Aztec Racing ahead of Marcel Fritsch for Verano Academy. Then we have Sean Dubby, P33 for Aztec, well not for Aztec Racing, ATEC Tech Racing I should say. Those technical issues not stopping him and holding him back, but in fact we've skipped a row there because on row 16 it's James Spencer's-Gal for Aztec Racing and Marcel Fritsch for Verano Academy. Then we come to Sean Dubby for ATEC Tech Racing, and then P34 will be Craig Tillerson for Verano Academy. Lewis Mason starts today P35 for Aztec Racing ahead of his rival Mark Sykes for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners Racing. And then we do have on what is row number 19, Eduardo Gonzaga for National Racing Team, ahead of Callum Murray for SO NXTGEN Gold, who had a very bumpy debut in the NXTCC at last time out, and we'll tell you a little bit more about his background and his position in the SO NXTGEN Gold team later on today, with Sammy Arriba P39 for Quartermass Motorsport and Gabriel Yilmaz completing your top 40 for Aztec Racing. On what is row at number 21, it's William Kurtler for Aztec Racing ahead of Dan Mull for SO NXTGEN Gold, one of 4 drivers with what was pit lane start penalties. Then it's Sam Venosa Goldwing Motorsport ahead of Adam Delmont, and Will Delmont behind his teammate Mould. And then we do see starting last but not least P45, Daniel Fritz for NXTGEN Orange with Risky Runners Racing. Well, that is the grid, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody is almost in position. We are now just waiting for the lights, and as we eagerly await, it is an absolutely packed field. All the drivers set in position. The majority of them going to the dry tyre. There's a couple of wet runners there, but I get the feeling we may not be seeing any more rain today. And well, as the lights are going on, it's going to be 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights, and it's a jump start from Lee Horn. It's a jump start there from the NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners driver, and as he pulls away, well, the rest of the field now follows, but surely Horn's completely mistimed it. And well, as they head in towards turn 1, Wentrix Woodage, they've been passed by Mikey Doble, and Doble jumping up the inside immediately and not ineffective. This is now for the lead, given the fact that Horn is going to have to serve a drive-through penalty as a minimum for that jump start as they roar the way out to the opening corner. All the drivers seem to be making the way on through, and as they do, 2, 3, even 4 wide at certain points, but they'll narrow down towards 2 wide now as they come into what is the first chicane, and will in all the madness there. A bit further back, but Andy Chell's made a lot of progress at the start. Dylan Hunter has been forced backwards, and in fact I think Hunter may have ended up in a bit of an altercation. I can't see him anywhere sideways to the top 5 of the air as they roar the way on for the first chicane and now towards the second. But as they do, all the drivers now starting to come closer and closer together. Kieran Smart, who's had a difficult start as well, down to P17 for Track Scotland, so he's really struggled off the line here, and a number of drivers all still trying to find the way into this race. We've got a way to go, there being 11 laps as they roar the way on down towards probably turns 8 to 9. While leaders are already through the chicane, but meanwhile you can see they're Gavin Garner battling side by side with Sam Smith. Onto the brakes they'll go, and as they come around to the corner with that lovely camera angle there to show on road, making the way now, exit curving and heading all the way in towards what is the hairpin. Well, meanwhile, we look, oh goodness me, and that is Mikey Doble. Mikey Doble's gone straight on there. And what is the hairpin? Now, was he aided in that adventure, or was that his own volition? We'll have to try and find out, but Mikey Doble having a very long trip out of the hairpin, and well, that is not a surprise we wanted to see if you're a Doble Sim Racing fan. But what it does mean now, with Lee Horn still 2 seconds clear, Off that jump start, well, they made the way, and there goes Lee Horn, peels off into the pit lane. So what was an absolute golden opportunity to take an overall win has ended up in disaster, you would say. Well, Benjamin McCluskey right now goes on to lap number 2, and as he does, he leads the way. So one lap complete, we've still got another 10 to go. Oh my goodness, and meanwhile, that is Richard Swerdike stepping aside, but it is McCluskey who leads ahead of Isaac Doble P2, Wayne Douglas P3. We then do have Andrew Pyatt P4 ahead of William Guthrie P5, followed by then Alex Meredith P6, battling hard here with the Full Tilt Motorsport car, and as they make the way on through turn number 2, well, it's not over yet between Meredith and what is Mikey Doble, with Alex Meredith being elbowed out of the order there in the battle with himself and Guthrie. Well, it does mean now that therefore Meredith has lost 2 places, the price of 1 battle, and roaring their way on through what is turns 2, 3 and 4, and that towards 5. Meredith down to P7, Cebula P8, P9, and we have Stuart Winus P10, and well, he completes that top 10 as your pro-am leader in class. But look at this, Ben Gregory right now all over the back of Winus as they make the way on through turns 6 and 7 as we ride on board here with the second place pro-am driver, and well, Russell Fowler, the third place pro-am, is 2 seconds back off of this battle as they make the way onwards towards what will be at turns 8 and 9. Nose to tail they go here then as they head in towards that braking zone, but as they do, will there be any opportunity for Gregory? It doesn't look as though there will be, but a mistake there from what is Ben Altria, and that's going to cause him to lose some time as they head up towards what will be the hairpin of turn number 10. But I get the feeling the Full Tilt Motorsport Pro driver here might be trying to provide a little bit of help to his fellow Ben. Oh my goodness, under braking! It's a snap loose there from what is Winus, and it sends what is Altria onwards. And Stuart Winus, I don't think he meant anything malicious with that, but in the end it was what was the car just snapping loose, and therefore for Winus, well, it's all gone wrong, albeit he will gain a bit of an advantage, but he won't have gained on Ben Gregory, who's made his way up the order, and therefore for Gregory right now it's all coming together very quickly indeed as they make the way onwards towards the next set of corners. But as they charge the way on through and in towards what is turns 13 and 14, we're more drama. From what I'm hearing, we've got Wojciech Swerdike in the pit lane. Not quite sure what's happened there, but with it all, and now we come on to lap number 3. McCluskey still leading here as he heads on through the corners, and it's looking as though McCluskey might be right now under huge pressure from Isaac Doble, and Isaac Doble putting all that pressure on as they make the way out of the corners and onwards towards where it's turns 3 and 4. We ride on board and look back here from the rear of the number 28, and as they make the way through the corners, it does look as though NXTGEN Pink continuing to feel very confident here, or at least their driver feels very confident in what he can do as they roar their way upwards towards the next braking zone. But then again, what can McCluskey do at this point other than just simply stick to his guns and continue to try and push away, because Isaac Doble is right there and a thorn in his side as they head onwards towards the next corner sequence, but making the way on through and upwards towards what will be at the next corner, or will be turns 8 and 9, which is definitely looking as though at this time these two are breaking away, with Wayne Douglas back in what is P3 and not really able to get into the fight at any point at the moment. And then again, we could see him perhaps just find a way into the battle over the later distance. We'll have to wait and see what he's going to be able to do here as they roar the way onwards. But as they come down, well, meanwhile, we look to McCluskey having to defend hard with Isaac Doble, and Doble right now looking all the way round on one side then the other, going for the switchback there is Isaac Doble as they head upwards towards now turns 13 and 14. And well, the Doble Sim Racing driver making some very quick gains there as they head on down what is the final stretch to complete this lap, albeit the World Champion chicane awaits them, and McCluskey in the tow now as they head onwards towards that braking zone. But has Doble started to unleash that Audi RS3's true potential on the straights, as they rock their way over the curves and bouncing, or jumping over I should say, Isaac Doble launching his way into the air, with the number 65 driver there leading now, and we're coming across that timeline, and it does look as though, well, Doble might be leading, but McCluskey is right there with him as they head onto lap number 4. But meanwhile, we need to take a look back at some activities that happened earlier in the race, and the big question many of you ask is what happened to Mikey Doble, and here is the replay from lap number 1. This was coming down in towards what was turn number 10, and as they made the way into the braking zone here, we are going to see Mikey Doble there in battling, and Wojciech Swerdike just sliding under braking and tapping the rear Mikey Doble, who avoided the wall. But that explains the story there as to what happened to Mikey Doble. Just a small tap from Swerdike and sending Doble straight on, and a nightmare moment for the pair of them. We also did have a little bit of an incident further on down the order for Andy Fox and Michael Lease, I do believe, and they were fighting their way in towards the turn 10 hairpin on this this open lap. We're looking at it from Fox's perspective at the foreground. Oh my goodness, and the curse of lap 1 continues to strike Andy Fox. A tap there to the rear of Fox's car by Michael Lees sends Fox to the barriers, and his race ended up in tatters as quickly as it got started once again, and a frustrating one at that. And well, meanwhile, as we come back to your leaders, they continue to push on, and we are hearing that Jaroslaw Cebula's had to tow to the pits quite recently, as has William Guthrie. So there's even more drama here at Montreal, and well, this is continuing to shake up the running order. And well, we've got replays coming as to what happened there, but meanwhile, what you see on your screen right now is Alan McCain fighting hard here with what is Cameron Gardner, and these two, excuse me, battling side by side on corner exit. And it does seem as though McCain right now, well, just trying to keep out of trouble, albeit Gardner here trying to make some trouble for him, because McCain's got to worry about what, and also Bradley behind as they head onto the brakes, in towards the hairpin, too wide they enter, and as they try to make the way out, will it be too wide on exit? Yes, it will, albeit Reese Watts says, can we make it 3 wide? And both McCain and Gardner say, no, you can't, you're going to have to wait. And well, as they come out of the corners and up towards the next one, well, I wouldn't be surprised here if we do potentially see even more fighting between them as the drivers roar the way on. But as they come on down the stretch here and on towards what will be the next lap, it does seem as though here at least that batting up between Wes McCain, Watt and Bradley continues to rage on. It's going to be Watt going defensive now as they come right into left here through the chicane, past the World Champions and up towards what will be at turn number 1 onto lap number 5. And whilst their battling goes on, we need to take a look back at what exactly happened to William Guthrie and also to Jaroslaw Cebula. Well, I think we can get the replay for Cebula first, and here it is. So this was on lap number 4, and Cebula, I think, in an already wounded car, in fact, and if you can see it, they're crawling along towards turns what was at 3 and 4, and in the end Cebula just pulling to the escape road. Was there an instant before that? Oh well, there's Guthrie into the wall. Oh my goodness, and that would explain the story immediately for what is the Full Tilt Motorsport driver, in the fact that it was an error going into the World Champions, and Cebula just happened to be on the wrong path. As meanwhile, there's more battling there as we come back to your live racing pictures, and well, as we do, well, there was a nasty moment, it would seem, for what was our drivers of what, and also I think in front of him was none other than Bradley, with the two of them having a bit of a love tap between them, and no love lost between them, but definitely the same as they roar the way on down towards turns 8 and 9. But as they come on down here, and well, you can see they're squirming under braking a number of drivers, including McCain and also Bradley. Well, this fight still continuing to rage on between them as they now make the way onwards towards what will be the hairpin once again. Coming on down towards that hairpin, more from the battling inside the mid-pack. Let's head further back towards the AM class, and we look here to what is none other than what is the racing from our AM leader, Lewis Mason, has got the company of Season 7 AM champion Mark Sykes all over the back of him as they head on down towards turn number 10. Mason looks one way, then looks the other to defend. Mark Sykes trying to do the same as well. Dylan Hunter, well, remember, he had a long fall down the order at the very start. Well, right now, the DH Racing driver being elbowed out there on the exit of what was the turn 10 hairpin, but he's trying to fight his way back up the order. So Hunter here definitely going hunting, no pun intended there, but just goes to show you that he's absolutely trying to attack this circuit as much as he possibly can. And well, as he does so, well, meanwhile, on all the battling that's going on here between our drivers, Dylan Hunter still having to wait for that opportunity to get back in, as Lewis Mason having to go defensive time and time again, going into what's that time the World Champion chicane. You can see they're very conservative exit from Mason, and that's an attempt to try and make sure that no pressure comes onto Mason as he heads down towards turn number 1. But as he does so, well, it's going to be a move now for Sykes. Shorty looking around the outside, not to be for Sykes, and instead Mason going defensive. And will we ride on board, looking back from the rear of the Aztec Racing Honda, as you can see Sykes there getting closer and closer, those 4 rings of the Audi protruding strongly. And as they head in towards turns 3 and 4, well, right now Sykes looks to the inside, Mason covers it off now. Sykes going to look around the outside here, through the right hander they go. Meanwhile, further back, you can see some squabbling there between Eduardo Gonzaga and what is Marcel Fridge. Gonzaga turns sideways. In fact, that was contact between was Gonzaga and Tillerson, and well, Gonzaga in the end backwards in the wall and what is at the first chicane. Oh my goodness, and how on earth did they manage to avoid that? Both drivers there, what, Sammy Arriba, and also I believe what was there, the Aztec Racing car of Gabriel Yilmaz, albeit Arriba in the end falling down the order after hitting the wall, I think from some secondary contact with Gabriel Yilmaz, but that could have been far, far worse. And the way they got away with it, well, Arriba has not got away with it, it should be said, but that could have been absolute curtains between them. But misfortune for the 99 Audi of Courtmaster Motorsports is Sammy Arriba, who has lost out there massively. Meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, we've been forgetting about the fact there's a battle for the overall lead right at the front of the field, and Isaac Doe and Benjamin McCluskey right now, well, these two are really just fighting on here in a completely separate world. They're 10 seconds clear of the rest of the field and enjoying this battle to no end. And then with the 10-second gap, where if you look back, you'll then see Andrew Pike, who started P11 in this race. He's made his way all the way up into P3. And as he comes on out of turn number 2, the fighting with Mikey Doble and Alex Meredith. We've got a car over there, it's Daniel Fritz, who's just parked up on the grass. I think he's had a moment to the tyre barrier, and we're not quite sure what's happened there to Daniel Fritz, but we do know that car's just sitting there waiting patiently, perhaps to rejoin once the field clears. And Alex Meredith being passed there by Wayne Douglas as they come out of turns 3 and 4, through and in towards what will be at turns 6 and 7 in short order. We can see these drivers right now all settling down for a brief moment, and whilst that's settling down, more 2 wide here from what is Michael Lees and Lewis Delmon as they come out of turn number 2. They exit the corner, and well, the number 55 driver from the United Kingdom find himself right now being surrounded, as that's going to be Sam Smith on the inside. I think Lee's got damage because that car is going very slowly. Sam Bradley looks up the inside here, and in the end, Lees makes it 2 wide with Bradley through the turn 3-4 chicane. You can see that Honda just has no gumption in it, and I wouldn't be surprised if we might see it coming into the pits. As meanwhile, speaking of coming into the pits, we've had Dylan Hunter come into the pits quite recently. I think there was some damage on the car of Hunter, and well, as the drivers make the way on around, I have been informed in my ear there was a major incident for Michael Lees on what was at the previous lap at the final chicane, and here's the replay, ladies and gentlemen, to explain the story. Lees at the time was battling there with the Track Scotland cars of Stuart Winus and Kieran Smart. Oh my good lord, and that is absolute chaos. And well, what on earth happened there is the big question, and I get the feeling that there might have been a moment under braking on what was a wet circuit whereby multiple drivers have been collected, and was it Lees who set off the chain reaction? And we take a look back from on board Lees's car. Let's listen in. And on the brakes there, well, it looked as though, in fact, intersecting contact between Lees and I believe that was the car of Kieran Smart that, when it broke, pointed in towards Lees's car, at least from Lees's on-board perspective. And Lees at that point just became a torpedo in the water and, well, collecting both what was Stuart Winus and also, I do believe there, Tom Davidson as well. A nightmare moment for the 4 drivers. And, well, and then they'll be taking a look back at that. I'm sure the stewards might be called to take a look at that one after the racing today. But indeed, a very unfortunate moment for all of them involved there, but these treacherous conditions as Lees just continues to try and soldier on here to get to the end. And well, as he makes his way down to the pit lane, and well, that's going to be a very frustrated number 55 driver. But meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, looking further up the order, we've got plenty more to come. We suspect from Isaac Doble and Benjamin McCluskey, as we do say hello there to Average Sharpie in the YouTube chat. And for those that tuning in, of course, do let us know now if the microphone and also the car audio volumes are a little bit better. We have had some technicians working in the background in order to be able to get everything leveled out as best as possible, and hopefully now we should be having the levels at the right order. But we always appreciate your feedback as well. Speaking of feedback here, well, the feedback we can give to Isaac Doble and Benjamin McCluskey is we want to see more of this as they make the way upwards towards what will be, at turn number 13, and Isaac Doble right now still under pressure from McCluskey as they power their way onwards towards the next 2 quarters and heading up there. Well, it does look as though at the time McCluskey at least not close enough to try and look for an opportunity this time around. And as they head in towards the right and left, well, it is going to be it's going to be Isaac Doble who right now is trying to put the pressure on as much as possible. And well, we can see McCluskey there looking around the outside, albeit for the King, and then it will be to the inside here of what is turn number 1. But Doble right now just outbraking McCluskey, and McCluskey trying to force the issue here as they make the way on around the corner. We ride aboard the number 28, and well, it does seem as though McCluskey very eager to make that move, but Doble just staying ahead 1 inch at a time as they roll their way right into left here through what is the chicane. And as they come on out, well, from them, Andrew Pike, meanwhile, still in P3, now 11 seconds back, and these two are just in a world of their own. And it's not to say they don't have success ballast in these cars, or at least McCluskey definitely does have success ballast. And I can tell you going into today, with regards to Isaac Doble's car, well, the success ballast he carried was 0, because he was P13 in the overall championship, but McCluskey, meanwhile, by comparison, was P6 in the championship, so therefore is carrying the best part of 20 to 30 kilograms in the car. So as our drivers roar the way on down, and we say hello to John Meredith there, and thank you to all the YouTube chat for giving us confirmation. We seem to have got those pesky audio issues fixed. Our cameraman at Circuit side at Montreal not quite getting the gains on those cameras set up in time today. Well, as the drivers make the way down towards what will be turn number 10. McCluskey now looking around the outside, trying to go in here, squirming under braking, and elbows out between the two of them, and they roll off the apex. We look to the exterior view, and Isaac Doble still just staying ahead here, and after getting ahead of McCluskey early on, he's not held back ever since then, and right now you can understand why the young driver absolutely giving it everything to hold off the number 28 Veloster, and that Audi is just brazen enough to pull away enough of the straight, and McCluskey won't be aided by the success ballast in the car. Meanwhile, further back, we can see up there where's Mikey Doble going quite slowly. I believe that might be a slowdown that Doble is having to serve, and that will be for track limits, most likely, if not at turn 10, then at turns 8 and 9. It's very easy to pick up a slowdown penalty for those track limits there, and therefore Mikey Doble not moving forward, but moving backwards. But we move forwards to the front of the field. We say hello there to what is Ned Wharton in the YouTube chat, who continue to support Isaac Doble, and right now Isaac set the personal best in that lap of 49.112, and the lap times are continuing to tumble here as the circuit continues to dry up, and I've just had it mentioned in my ear that the slowdown for Mikey Doble was at turns 8 and 9, so therefore that's why we've seen Mikey Doble move down to P6, but Isaac continues to push on as they roar the way up towards what will be turns 6 and 7 on this penultimate lap of race number 1 of the day. But from our drivers here to a bit further back, let's not forget as well, we've got fighting going on. In fact, we've got a 1-2 battle in the AM class between Aztec Racing's Lewis Mason and William Kurtler, and then there's Kieran Smart behind, but Callum Murray, the third place AM driver, after what was a dismal day of racing in what was Knockhill at last time out. Well, Murray right now is trying to turn the wick up, but looking to the front of this pack, and as they head in towards the World Champion chicane, where you can see there how Lewis Mason right now under a lot of pressure, and that's Kieran Smart trying to slow his way through. William Kurtler falls back a place overall, but from them we look back up here to what is Alex Meredith. Hold on a second, that's Andrew Pike. Pike is going very slowly, and what's happened to Andrew Pike? I think it might be the situation whereby Pike has been muscled down the order through either a mistake of his own doing, or alternatively something else. Can we get a replay to explain there? Because you can see behind Doble versus Dory as they head in towards what is turn number 10, and Mikey Doble back up the inside and making it count and moving up to P6 for now, but Andrew Pike seemingly struggling there for a brief moment, and what looks as though Pike's been able to get the speed back, but not quite sure what triggered that off. But we can tell you that it's definitely been now one of the situations where Andrew Pike has fallen out of the podium positions. But meanwhile, going on to the final lap, and let's return to those leaders and stay with them, ladies and gentlemen, as the white flag waves. It's Isaac Doble who leads, but only 2 tenths behind him is Benjamin McCluskey. As they come through the right-hander, a little bit of traffic comes out the pit lane in the form of Sean Doby, but he's going to simply back off there and let leaders go on free. You can see Isaac Doble flashing his lights, trying to send a message to Andy Chell, which is we're coming up behind you. Don't block us here, and the blue flags will be waving for Chell. It will see them coming as they head on through turns 3 and 4, and as they exit out towards turn number 5, Chell immediately pulls aside here, and McCluskey right now on the attack as we ride on board, looking down over the nose, although Veloster looking up the inside, forcing the door open here as they head in. There's a tap, and it turns the 65 of Isaac Doble around, but McCluskey immediately stops the car up, pulls up there, and lets the racing continue. That's great respectful racing between them, and McCluskey in the end recognising the fact he doesn't want to gain it unfairly, and therefore incur the wrath of the stewards, and Isaac Doble has been allowed to retake the lead of this race, and we've still got a fight on our hands, and given the fact they were 13 seconds clear of the rest of the pack, well, therefore they could afford to do this, and as they make the way out of turns 8 and 9, well, now I wouldn't be surprised if McCluskey decides, right, the racing is back up once again as they head in towards turn number 10, but great respect shown there by McCluskey, immediately owning up for the contact, and as they come into the hairpin, well, now it's all going to be about whether the Audi can get a better run out the corner compared to the Veloster, and will we've seen it over the last 10 laps, yes it can, and on this final lap will he be able to? Well, meanwhile, as they come down into the hairpin, we can see Pike here battling with Mikey Doble, getting up the inside, but now the Honda's got the long drag race to do, but then looking back to the very front of the field, well, Isaac Doble right now, half a second clear, and well, absolutely delivering lap after lap, and as they come through the final 2 quarters, ladies and gentlemen, the run to the checkered flag awaits, and for Isaac Doble, it's a wait for a win that finally comes to an end as Isaac Doble takes the checkered flag, and in doing so takes one of his first victories of the season here for Doble Sim Racing, the 65, ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, and then it will be P3 for Alex Meredith. How long ago has it been since we said P3 for Alex Meredith overall? Wayne Douglas P4, Mikey Doble P5, Andrew Pike P6 ahead of Jamie Dory P7. Ben Gregory takes P8 there and takes victory in the Prime class in a very quiet race for the Full Tilt Motorsport driver after the early incident. Russell Fowler will take the runner-up spot in the Prime class for Verano Esports, and in the top 10 is completed by Stuart Winus of Track Scotland in a frustrating race for the team. Gavin Garner P11 ahead of Lee Horn, and we've got some time to go before our next driver comes on through, and it's a P4 in the Prime class, P13 overall for Reese Watt ahead of Lewis Delmont, who comes across the line there, P14. And to wrap up the overall top 15, Joe Doble, or is it? No, it's a slowdown, and it means Dan Mould, who started from the very back of the field in the pit lane, takes P15. Joe Doble just missed out on the overall points ahead of Alan McCain and Adam Delmont. And then we've got some more time to what is Sam Smith in P19. Fastest lap of the race going to Adam Delmont on the final lap, it would seem. Kieran Smart will take P20, but what about in the AM class? Well, it's a long line of AM cars here, and at the head of the 4 AM cars is going to be Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing. And his teammate William Curler, Aztec Race, take a 1-2 in the AM class then. P24, P25, and it's Lewis Mason ahead of William Curler at the head of that pack. Marcel Fritsch takes P3 in the AM class behind him ahead of Craig Tillison, who in the end takes an escort to the pit lane exit. And then it will be a P28 for Sam Bradley ahead of Jaroslaw Cebula and Nick Clemens to wrap up your top 30. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race we have had. It has been a race of up and downs. It's also been a race of spoilers missing for Eduardo Gonzaga, but the National Racing Team driver finally gets the car home, and what I believe that is all our drivers accounted for as they make the way on around on their cool-down laps. And as they do, well, Alex Meredith, the Next Gen Orange Whiskey Runners driver, now just bringing his way into the pit lane, and as he does so, the number 19, well, he'll be happy at that P3, but for Isaac Doble, it is a victory to be savoured after that brilliant race-long battle of Benjamin McCluskey. Great respect shown between the two drivers, and in the end, Isaac Doble delivering the goods there for victory in race 1 at Montreal as all drivers come to a close. Ben Gregory, the Prime winner, he'll have the spectre of that early contact hanging over his head, of course, in his battle that we did see for the Prime lead in the opening laps. And meanwhile, as more of the drivers come down the pit lane for Lewis Mason, who's got a way to go before he does get to the pit lane, well, the AM driver taking up that AM victory. And well, we'd have to go all the way back to the opening 2 rounds of the season to see Lewis Mason battling for AM wins. But the 991 driver there, originally from 991 Racing, now for Aztec Racing, well, he'll be absolutely pleased with what has been a deserved result in taking up that AM victory ahead of William Kurtler. And Marcel Fritsch, meanwhile, well, he'll feel as though whilst it wasn't the AM win, most importantly, it was ahead of his rivals, and Marcel Fritsch just seems right now to be absolutely unstoppable, and that podium just keeps calling to him. But as our final couple of drives make the way down into the pit lane for victory, well, let's take a look at those race results, ladies and gentlemen, subject to any Stewart inquiries, and well, here they are. So as we bring the results up on screen for race 1 of the day of round 7 of season 8 of the NXTCC, Isaac Doble takes victory by what was 6/10 of a second in for Doble Sim Racing over Next Gen Pink's Benjamin McCluskey. Third place went to Alex Meredith, the best part of 9 seconds behind the 2 leaders, but the Next Gen Orange Whiskey Runners driver absolutely digging in to take a great result ahead of Wayne Douglas, P4 for Douglas Motorsport, and your top 5 completed by an absolutely battle-hardened Mikey Doble for Doble Sim Racing. Andrew Pike was P6 for the Sim Racing Collective and started P11. A great result there for the 57, albeit missing out on the podium at the very end. Unfortunate, you could also say. Jamie Dory P7 there for Next Gen Pink. And then your Pro Am winner Ben Gregory at P8 there for Full Tilt Motorsport ahead of Russell Fowler, the Prime runner-up for Verano Esports, and Track Scotland's Stuart Winus, who completed the Prime top 10. P11, it was Gavin Garner for Next Gen Pink. Best of the rest ahead of Lee Horn, the Next Gen Orange Whiskey Runners driver. After that brilliant qualifying session, a jump start saw him in the end have to come into the pits and take a drive-through penalty. But after that, making his way back to P12, that's still a great performance there, but not the way he wanted it to go. P13 for Reese Watt for JWM Motorsport ahead of Lewis Delmont, the SO Next Gen Gold driver, just ahead of teammate Dan Mould, who rounds off the overall top 15 positions. Joe Doble was P16 ahead of Alan McCain, with then the top 20 being completed by Adam Delmont, Sam Smith and Kieran Smart. P21, it was James Smazlerscow for Aztec Racing ahead of Michael Leese, and then we did see William Guthrie at P23. Lewis Mason, your AM winner, took P24 for Aztec Racing and led home a 1-2 ahead of teammate William Kurtler in the AM class, and P26 P3 in AM class was Marcel Fritsch for Verano Academy. Craig Tillison was P27 there, the Verano Academy driver, just missed out on the AM podium, but knowing he was only tenths away from being on it, and he'll look for that in race number 2. And the top 30 was then rounded off by Sam Bradley, Jaroslaw Cebula and Nick Clibbins. Dylan Hunter, P5 in the AM class there, the DH Racing drive going for a recovery drive, not quite successful in doing so, but still more to come in race number 2, just ahead of Mark Sykes. And we did see Wojciech Swierdowicz, P33 after that early contact with Mikey Doble on the opening lap, ahead of Gabriel Yilmaz, Tom Davidson, and your last lead lap finisher, Eduardo Gonzaga. In P37, it was Sam Van Olst a lap down, 2 laps down to Callum Murray, and then we did see to round off the results there, 2 laps down as well to Sean Doby, Andy Chell, 3 laps down to Matthew Cheverton, 4 down to Sammy Reba and Daniel Fritz, and your last finisher, P45, 5 laps down, Andy Fox, as his lap 1 curse continues to continue. And well, when will it end for the Goldwyn Motorsport driver? But still, 45 starters, 45 finishers, of which 36 on the lead lap. And that is just race number 1, ladies and gentlemen. We've still got 2 more races to come here today at the Montreal circuit in Canada. And we will be back for the build-up to race number 2 in approximately 7 to 8 minutes' time. But as we make our way to race number 2, we leave you with a word from our title sponsor for this season, Doble Motorcycles. We will see you very shortly. If you are looking to buy your next 2-wheeled machine or ATV, why not consider Doble Motorcycles? Home to an expansive full range of Honda motorcycles, scooters, off-road bikes and ATVs, Doble Motorcycles is the UK's leading Honda motorcycle dealer. However, do not just take our word for it. Having won numerous awards over the years, including 3 Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year awards, and being nominated for many more, including Honda Dealer of the Year 4 times, the Doble family-run business prides itself on customer service, and it shows. Add to this the family's rich racing history through 3 generations, as currently embodied by Mikey Doble Racing, with Mikey chasing glory in the BTCC, and you can be certain that you will receive excellent customer service from lights out to checkered flag. So if you'd like to know more, check out their website today at doble.co.uk. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycle store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to race number 2 of the day. We've just had race number 1, and what a race it was, but now race number 2 is here, and with it plenty more exciting racing action to come at the one and only Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Now, whilst we've been in the intervening period, we have done a little bit of investigating with regards to a number of the technical issues that have crept up in today's broadcast, and we're very pleased to say we've actually got to the bottom of them now after having to apply some workarounds over the course of what was race number 1 to get the audio levels exactly where we want them to be. But now hopefully those audio issues should be gone and we can go back to the racing we absolutely know and love, and everything will be exactly as we like to see. We do apologise for that. These little technical gremlins do come up every so often, and we're right now with only 2 minutes to go before we do head into race number 2. Well, there might just be time for a quick word with one of our drivers or two, and in fact we are going to try and sneak a quick word in if we can. We're a man who started all the way from the back of the field but made his way very quickly towards the front of it in what was race number 1, and we're going to try and catch a word with none other than what will be Dan Mould. Give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see if we can get a quick 30-second chat with the man. As we do now get Patrick to the car. Good evening to you, Dan. Have you got time for a quick chat?
Hey up, mate, you alright?
All good, thank you. But more importantly, how are you doing after what was a brilliant drive from the back of the field in race 1?
Well, I just thought it was damage limitation at first, and then I just thought I'd try, you know, tip me around the field. I did think at first 15 seconds behind the grid was a little bit harsh, but people just seemed to drop off. Collisions happened, and then yeah, we just started to pick up places. Yeah, I'm pleased with. I think it was either 15th or 16th I finished. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, better than I expected, to be fair. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, very true. Well, now race number 2, you're starting in a bit more of a familiar position, albeit just outside the top 10, so no weight in the car. What can we expect from you of our second race of the day?
Obviously, the first couple of laps, take it easy. The first sector is going to be one to watch out for, where the field's going to compress and bottleneck. So yeah, I'm just going to try and just take it steady for the first couple, and then just see what I can pick up. If I score good, I score good. If not, as long as I finish, I just want to finish the race. That's my main goal, is finish tonight.
That's absolutely fair, and with that in mind, we'll leave you to it, Dan, 'cause you've only got a few seconds before we do go racing, and hopefully we'll see you at the checkered flag.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So hearing it there from Dan Mould, setting his expectations, and with those in mind, getting himself all set, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to his race, and wanting to get to the finish first and foremost, but still amazed at how it went with regards to race number 1 after starting so far back, and with what was the pit lane start penalty as well. But will it be Dan who perhaps springs a surprise, or one of our other drivers? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is to go to the grid and go green flag racing. And well, ladies and gentlemen, as our drivers complete their practice session, they head to the grid, and this is how they'll line up for race number 2 of the day. And as we can see, it is Isaac Doble who carries on from where he left off in race 1 with pole position for Doble Sim Racing. Benjamin McCluskey lines up alongside for NXTGEN Pink P2, with Alex Meredith P3 there for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners, meanwhile starting there on the second row. He's in the company of Wayne Douglas for Douglas Motorsport, and then we do have starting P5 Mikey Doble, the Doble Sim Racing driver, knowing he's got a little bit more to do if he wants to be on that podium, as does Andrew Pyatt for the Sim Racing Collective, who joins him at P6. Jamie Dory starts P7 for NXTGEN Pink, knowing that it didn't quite go his way in the end in race 1, but there's more to do in race 2. He's in the company of Ben Gregory, who starts in what is P8, and he's the Prime pole sitter. And from the full tilt motorsport driver, it's then an all Prime row number 5 to complete your top 10 of Russell Fowler for Verano Esports and Stuart Winus for Trans Scotland. And then have Gavin Garner starting P11 for NXTGEN Pink ahead of Lee Horn, the NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners racing driver, who started on pole but had a huge jump start in race number 1. Now he'll know not to do the same again in race number 2. And then we do see on row number 7 what will be the combination of Reece Watt for JWM Motorsport and Lewis Delmont for SO and NXTGEN Goal. For Lewis Delmont, he's got the company of his teammate Dan Mould, who starts P15 behind, and having started at P42 in race 1, where he's going to absolutely try and launch his way up the order in this race as well. And perhaps he could make his way into the top 5, if not an overall podium. He's got Joe Doble for company, P16, after it was a great start in race number 1. Didn't quite work out for the number 11 driver of Doble Sim Racing, but he'll know still there's 2 to go. Alan McCain starts P17 for iRacing Esports ahead of Adam Delmont for SO NXTGEN Gold. And then your top 20 is completed by Sam Smith for iRacing Esports, just behind his teammate Alan McCain in terms of lining on the grid, and Kieran Smart completes the top 20 for Track Scotland. James Francis Gale starts P21 for Aztec Racing ahead of Michael Lease for JWM Motorsport. And then we do have William Guthrie P23 for Full Tilt Motorsport ahead of Lewis Mason, who is your AM pole sitter after his win in race number 1. The Aztec Racing driver will start there with confidence, and he'll carry that confidence in the fact that he's also got his teammate William Kurtler behind for Aztec Racing, starts P25. P26 is Marcel Fritsch, the AM Championship leader, continues his run at the top of the standings after race 1 for Verano Academy, and behind the Austrian it's going to be the 2 Englishmen of Craig Tillerson for Verano Academy and Sam Brandy for SO NXTGEN Gold. Your top 30 is completed by Jaroslaw Cebula, the Polishman having a nightmare of a day in race number 1, and in at the end knowing now that race number 2 is where he's got it all to do, and the NXTGEN Pink driver is in the company of Nick Clemens of iRacing Esports, who will have his own nightmare that he'll look to try and bounce back from. Dylan Hunter starts P31 for DH Racing. One to watch out for. We do reckon he's got a lot of pace in that AM at Veloster, and the number 26 driver just having an unfortunate race number 1, and he's in the company of Mark Sykes and NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners P32. White Chicks Red Oak starts P33 ahead of Gabriel Yilmaz. The Semper Racing driver has got the company of the Aztec Racing driver on row 17, with row 18 then going to the pair of Tom Davidson, who had an unfortunate end to his race in race 1, and the Sim Racing Collective drivers in the company of Eduardo Gonzaga, who limped it home at the end of race 1 minus a spoiler and also a boot tray for National Racing Team. We then have on row number 19 at Sam Van Olst, the Belgian driver for Goldwyn Motorsport ahead of Callum Murray for SO NXTGEN Gold, and then in the completion of the top 40 it's Ben Altrier for Full Tilt Motorsport and Sean Dobie for 88 Tech Racing. P41, it's Andy Chell for Courtmaster Motorsport with Matthew Sheraton for company for Aztec Racing. After a great qualifying session, huge technical issues blighted him going to the grid in race 1, and then it was a pit lane start. Sammy Reba starts P43 for Courtmaster Motorsport ahead of Daniel Fritz for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners Racing. And then on the final row of the grid, we now have 46 drivers here. Andy Fox for Goldwyn Motorsport and Jake Pitt for Aztec Racing. And for Andy, well, he can only hope that lap number 1, seeing him start at the back of the grid, doesn't have anything bad in store for him. But then again, he has had an absolute difficult journey so far. Will the difficulties continue? Well, we look back down towards the front of the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and Isaac Doble will now know that he has got an Audi that is laden with weight. 56.1 kilograms of success ballast in that Audi, and as the lights gradually go on, it is going to be for the second time today 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 2 of the day as all the drivers pull off the line as quickly as they can. And as they roar their way down towards the opening corner where Isaac Doble nails his start, no doubt about it. Benjamin McCluskey for company immediately behind, as McCluskey in fact having to go quite defensive there. And as they make their way out of turn number 2, well, McCluskey right now under huge pressure. As you see the field snaking its way through. We look to the closer cameras there with the blimp being too far away, and McCluskey holds on to P2, but Wayne Douglas looks on the inside here. Douglas goes all in, and as he does, gets the move made. Meanwhile, we've got a bit of chaos going on further back, albeit most of our drivers have made it on through the opening few corners, and it does look as though White Chicks Red Oak are immediately up to P30, albeit Eduardo Gonzaga's had to be towed to the pits. There has been a bit of drama for Gonzaga, but meanwhile in the prime class, back up to turns what is 5, 6 and 7, well, Ben Gregory here has been muscled down. Stuart Wine is side by side. This is the lead of the prime class as they come out of the right-hander, and onwards they'll go towards what will be turns 8 and 9. Wayne Douglas flashed his lights there. He's not happy about something, but Gregory right now under pressure on Wine is on the inside here into the third of the chicanes on what is the first section of the circuit, and as they make their way out from there, it's McCluskey making his way past the camera, leading the rest of the field from P2. Oh my goodness, there's been a big incident meanwhile in amongst all of that. Who's been involved in it? Well, as we try to discern, a couple of cars limping back together, some body parts as well flying there, some what is aero coming off, Adam Delman, and also I believe that is Joe Doble, are both going slowly, and the field is trying to make the way around them, but we will try and understand what's happened then. Due course is Dylan Hunter and the DH Racing Veloster, they're sliding loose, but Adam Delman's definitely had a very frustrating moment. We've got a few nose-to-tail bumps, car around there, and is that Dan Mulder who's just been turned around? No, that's Tom Davidson, and well, the Sim Racing Collective 42 driver has had his race day go from good to bad to worse very quickly. But meanwhile, we look back to the front of the field, and Isaac Doble has had an absolutely mammoth start to this race, and come the end of lap number 1, he started on pole, and he's still leading, so 1 lap down, and it's Isaac Doble who leads by 2 seconds over Benjamin McCluskey P2. We have Wayne Douglas P3, Mikey Doble P4, followed by Alex Meredith P5, Andrew Pipe P6, Jamie Dory P7, Stuart Wine, your prime leader, is P8 ahead of Ben Gregory, and then it's Gavin Garner P10 with Russell Fowler, the third place prime driver, Bestores P11. as the drivers come out of what is turn number 2. Well, we've also got in the AM class Lewis Mason battling with what is their teammate from a different class of James Fesserscow. But look at this of Craig Tillotson. Tillotson up the inside here for the AM lead as they exit turn 2, heading up towards turns 3 and 4. Through the right-hander they go, and as they do, well, Tillotson right now tucked in behind the Renault Academy driver, can't find a way through, but he's throwing everything at it, and he throws a bit too much as he hits the wall there, and that was a very, very brutal hit to the wall, and the front right suspension of that 34 Elantra, I don't know how it's not been knocked out of alignment. If it has, however, that could be a pit stop beckoning for what is the Renault Academy Elantra driver as he makes his way on behind, but we'll have to wait and see where his race has been impacted. But meanwhile, in all this, Dan Mould has been caught up in an incident, I can tell you, I've been told in my ears, so therefore we have had a few drivers had a nightmare start to this race. We will get a replay of some of the incidents that have happened in due course, and will meanwhile, in all of this, we do see now as they come down towards turn 10 for the second time asking, Alex Meredith still finding himself sandwiched between Pike and Dory as they come upwards now towards what is the final stretch, roaring the one down, and well, for Alex Meredith, the next gen Orange Whiskey Runners driver, you would imagine here, and it feels as though it's going to be simple driving, albeit with Andrew Pike there, and then it's what is Meredith and Dory side by side. Well, Dory trying to go around the outside, less weight in the car for Dory in this race, and that is going to help him feel a little bit more confident in what the Audi can do. And we're coming in towards turns 13 and 14, they bounce over the curbs, and Alex Meredith in the end, well, he has to tuck back in for a brief moment, but Dory now looking to try and go up towards the inside here as they come down, not quite able to, and Dory covers him off here, but you can see the Elantra just as fast out the blocks as the Audi RS3, but then up the inside, and Meredith goes Stuart Winess, the two come together, and Winess, who was your prime leader in the end, looking for an opportunity, and that opportunity has been found wanting, and it means Russell Fowler in all of this now takes the prime lead. The Runner Esports driver, if he's not aware of it, next time he comes around, he'll look past that pit gantry, and he'll see that he's now leading the prime class, or at least be told over the radio by the team. And well, right now the question is, can he hold it together, because it seems as though for a lot of drivers they've just got it wrong, and Reese Watt and Ben Gregory are not too far behind, but they are split from Fowler by Lee Horn, who's up into P9. But whilst all this has been happening, let's take a look back at the replays from the start, and indeed some rather major incidents, including some off-tracks for Callum Murray, Adam Delmont and Joe Doble. Well, here is a car of Callum Murray that's just parked up, and I believe Murray may have been spat out there much earlier on, and in fact we get an earlier replay. This was the AM driver from SO NXTGEN Gold, and in a small tap with the number 5 there of was Andy Chell, sent him round, and Callum Murray, who is a major player in the SO NXTGEN Gold paddock, well, it's all gone wrong for him. Meanwhile, for Adam Delmont, from one SO NXTGEN Gold driver to another where it's gone wrong, Adam Delmont came in blazing hot, taps Dan Mould around there, gets pinned on what is Joe Doble's car, and that explains what happened to Dan Mould in the number 62. So Mould in the end being brought to a bit of an abrupt halt by his teammate, and Adam Delmont in the end going all in, but it didn't quite work out for that, and I think perhaps just missed his braking zone. But meanwhile, we also do have some other replays to look at, including what happened to Gabriel Yilmaz here at the early stage of the race. And in fact, I think this was down towards the hairpin, and well, the number 43 driver here, as he came down to the braking zone, I think there was a lock-up and indeed broken suspension on that car going around. But those are some of the replays from lap 1. We now need to focus back on the racing here, live on your screens on lap number 4, and well, with everything that's playing out, well, meanwhile, Isaac Doble has been reeled back in to the pack as they head in towards turns 3 and 4. No safety cars have enabled this. This is just Isaac Doble has been reeled in, and that last lap from the race leader was a second slower compared to everybody else. I wouldn't be surprised if Isaac Doble is perhaps struggling a little bit with that success ballast in the car, plus also perhaps a slowdown thrown into the mix there. But Doble right now lapping in the low 47s, whereas his rivals McCluskey and Douglas around him are lapping in the low 46s, and the contrast is absolutely astounding here, as Isaac Doble right now knows he can't just simply place his laurels on the idea that he's going to run into the distance. But you can see there at the back of this quartet, Mikey Doble, his teammate, older brother as well, trying to catch up here and get involved. And meanwhile, McCluskey and Wayne Douglas are going to go side by side here in the battle of the two Velosters. So the two Audis sandwich up what is the filling here of the two Velosters, and it's going to be Douglas who gets ahead on the outside. McCluskey stays there on the inside here, trying to force the issue back as they come out of the corner, and McCluskey is ahead for now, but Wayne Douglas is not going to take that politely as we ride on board here with the number 66 all over the rear bumper of what is the McCluskey machine as they make their way down the Casino Straight, and as they do, Douglas looks to the inside. McCluskey really pinning him there to the bare minimum available space, and as they head onto the brakes, Wayne Douglas up the inside, goes all in, and McCluskey has to let it go, but this fight is surely going to cost some time. McCluskey almost hits the World Champions there, just misses it. Mikey Doble says, well, thank you, I'll take that off of you, as they head on to the next lap, but that was a very close near miss for what was Benjamin McCluskey to lose out on what could have been an absolutely brilliant race, regardless where he finishes now. If he stays in this quartet, he's on for a great result, but that could have been race ending. But as they come on to the next lap, well, whilst all this is playing out, meanwhile, we have to point out the fact that Wojciech Swierdajczyk, who started outside the top 30, is now picking up the pieces and started P33 up into P16. The man right now is pulling his way on for our guest driver, and his next target after passing William Guthrie will be Alan McCain, who's just in front, but behind them we do have Joe Doble as well, trying to pick his way past some of the drivers, battling up the inside here of what is none other than, I do believe, Michael Lees in a Honda that's missing a good chunk of his front bumper once again. Emil James Smazerscale trying to take the rallycross line as they come out of turn number 4. You can understand why, I think, unsighted there to the apex, but almost picking up a slowdown for his efforts as they come out of 5 and in towards 6. And behind those two, then is the AM lead battle of Lewis Mason versus Greg Tillerson. Oh my good lord! And well, there you could see Tillerson almost wiping the rear bumper and the rear camera of the Lewis Mason's Honda. The Elantra is pushing for this. It's been some time since we've seen Tillerson battling for the lead of the AM class, but you love to see it, and I can imagine right now that KTMs in the Facebook chat will be absolutely cheering Craig on. A big Verano Esports and Academy fan is KTMs, who we say hello to there in Facebook. And as our drivers make the way down, well, right now Lewis Mason has pulled away enough, but I wouldn't be surprised here if this is because Mason is in the tough Smazerscale after Tillerson getting out of order, coming out of turn 6 and 7. More it resets the battle between them for a period of time. But exiting out of the corner, you can see Tillerson there getting the better exit, and that Elantra now will start to gain arms and legs with regards to the amount of speed it can pull. And well, as they power the way down, we ride on board here with Tillerson off camera. Meanwhile, in P3 in the AM class, he's just taken it, is Dylan Hunter, who's moved up to P30. So Hunter's had a great race so far to move back into the podium places of the AMs, and well, he's quite some way over Tillerson and Mason. He is the best part of 10 seconds off of this fight, in fact 12 seconds as I've done the quick mathematics in my head. But what I can tell you is that Hunter is flying right now and is on the prowl for more places. And speaking of the man, here he is as he comes into camera view, but he's got William Kurtler trying to take a look up the inside, but Hunter has returned to the podium place. We can keep this together going on to lap number 6, and DH Racing driver giving it everything as we take a look back at the move that gained him the spot. Was coming down in towards the Pinglet hairpin at turn at number 10, and as he came down onto the brakes here, went all in on the anchors, standard move. And for Hunter, well, in the end, I had to go a little bit deep, but gets the better traction on exit, and Kurtler with a success balance of what is about 16.6 kilograms in that car. We would imagine that Audi just being held back a little bit whilst it would love to tear forward. But we come back to your live pictures, and we come back to the very front of the field, and this is the battle for the lead, which is still raging on between our drivers as they come on down towards what will be turn number 10 this time around. For the 6th time of asking, will Mikey Doble, having passed Benjamin McCluskey, is now putting pressure on Wayne Douglas, who looks to go around the outside of Isaac Doble through turn 10. He can't quite find it, and instead is now made to wait as they come onwards towards what will be turn number 13. But powering their way down the straight and in towards the next braking zone, where you can see Isaac here staying close, doing everything he can in order to look for a move. And Wayne Douglas absolutely glued to the back there of Isaac Doble as they head up towards the braking zone for the World Champion chicane. And it's going to be, well, it's number 65 having to defend here as hard as possible, and Wayne Douglas being made to just bunch up behind. And right now for Isaac Doble, it really is trying to shove the cork back in the proverbial bottle every time a move is attempted by Wayne Douglas as they head in towards turn number 1 for the lap number 7. You can see there what is Mikey Doble, a small tap, I think, to the rear of the car, and just getting unsettled, and also I think trying to open up the corner as much as possible. They stay all together, these four, and Benjamin McCluskey meanwhile in P4. We ride on board for a brief moment with the number 28 Veloster. We'd have to imagine here, after losing out what was P2 and P3 after some early mistakes, and Wayne Douglas there makes a mistake, goes very sideways, and McCluskey just squeezes on the inside to the outside now through turn number 5. You'll have to lift off the throttle there because understeer would otherwise take him to the wall, but Wayne Douglas making an error through the turn 3-4 chicane, and that enables Mikey Doble to move up to P2, and this could have huge implications here in the team's championship for what is Doble Sim Racing to retake them to P2 come at the end of today if race 3 goes their way as well. And well, for Mikey Doble right now, surely it won't be a word to Isaac on the radio say, can we swap places? Because, well, Isaac, I think, will want to take that win and make it back-to-back, but even if Mikey finishes P2, this will be a huge dent delivered in the championship aspirations of Jaroslaw Cebula, who's in P13 by contrast right now. And here you can see Cebula, for comparison, who's battling with Ben Gregory, in fact trying to chop his way past what is the podium runners or fighters in the Prime class as the field consequently comes down in towards the hairpin. Looking around the outside of Gregory, can't quite find it. Meanwhile, Wojciech Swierdijk up the inside there, Alan McCain. Or at least trying to make the move, but McCain now getting the throttle down, and the Semper Racing driver making what is an absolute mountain out of the molehill here to try and pass the Prime driver. But you can understand, given the weight that's in the number 80 car, and was they roar the way and down that Veloster, starting to ahead, got a little bit of a distant toe as well. That will aid him in his adventure, and I think McCain deciding to let this one go and just let them all go nose to tail through. Further back, we have Joe Doble battling his way around the outside of Sam Smith for P20, so the number 11 Audi RS3 picks up another overall place, gets himself a little bit closer inside what is that top 23 potential reverse grid. But William Guthrie, conversely, moving down the order. Well, in fact, not William Guthrie, I should say Ben Gregory falling down the order for a slowdown, which was served coming out of the World Champion chicane. So that would have been for track limits at turns 13 and 14. And that does mean Gregory has dropped all the way from what was, I believe, P12 all the way down now to P17. And that is a big impact, given the fact he was battling for P3 in the Prime class. Now he'll be P6 in class, knowing he's got to pick his way past a couple more Pro-Ams in order to chase after the podium. But just up the road from them, Reece Watt, he's P2 in the Prime class, and as we've said at the start of today's broadcast with regards to Reece Watt, really the man who has been exceptional and producing unexceptional moments other than consistency, albeit you could say that is exceptional in of itself. And the number 32 driver here on course for another podium at this rate, and if so, that would definitely keep him right in the hunt of the Prime Championship crown. But it won't if he goes wide like that, and going to be a bit of contact there on the rejoin with what's Kieran Smart. I think Smart trying to go around the outside, seeing the opportunity, but in the end just getting caught out with Reece Watt trying to pull the car off the apex curve at turn number 9. And as they come down towards turn 10, where it's going to be 2 by 2 by 2, they go. And this isn't Noah's Ark, this is NXTCC, but you can be easily forgiven for making a mistake as they come out of the hairpin. They're still too wide, many of them, and it's going to be Watt and Cebula who fight over this, as the rest of the field now all tuck in to a single line formation. But as they head up towards turn number 13 by the Casino Stray, well, this fighting is continuing to intensify, and well, you can see there Watt doesn't want to let it go versus Cebula, given the fact he'll want to start further up the order, or at least guarantee he is finishing high up the order to be in that reverse grid for the final race of the day. But also I think Watt wants some team points. But meanwhile, whilst this is going on, change for lead up front, Mikey Doble up the inside there of Isaac Doble, taking the place there, and the number 88 driver I think going all in for the move there, and Isaac in the end not fighting too hard because I think worried about the risk of Wayne Douglas directly behind. And well, these three right now continue to run nose to tail, but Wayne Douglas, I think, just trying to get himself back on the attack path with only 3 laps to go, including this one. As the drivers come through turn 5 down towards turns 6 and 7, there's Wayne Douglas diving to the inside, loses the car and collects both of the Doble Sim Racing drivers, and well, that is going to completely upset the apple cart there, and Douglas immediately backing off with damage to the car as well. But McCluskey is going to be released, and well, now Andrew Pike jumps up into P2 in all of this, and well, could the Sim Racing Collective drivers suddenly have a golden opportunity to take a run for the overall win here? But that is definitely a major mistake under braking from Wayne Douglas. It was seen the car swinging loose and careening into the path of the 2 leaders, and well, Doble Sim Racing will not be too happy with that, because that is going to have put a huge mark on what could have been a fantastic 1-2 result for them here as they head out of turn number 10. And Isaac Doble and Mikey Doble still together, but you can see how the field now is crowding around and the vultures are swirling in here. Gavin Gardner at the head of them in P6, with Russell Fowler being brought up behind. The Renault Esports driver here very eager to try and make an impression as they head on down towards turn number 13. But as they do, well, from them we look back to the AM lead battle for a brief moment. Lewis Mason still P26, your AM leader for Aztec Racing, but still with Craig Tillerson absolutely hugging the rear. As I look out my content booth window, and I can tell you that Isaac Doble has had to come in for repair work to the car, so Isaac Doble's opportunity to make it back-to-back wins has been broken, and it is heartbreak down in the pit lane there, and I can imagine he'll get back out on circuit, but it's not the way he wanted it to go. Meanwhile, looking back up, and well, we just come and catch the end of another altercation there between Wayne Douglas and Mikey Doble. I think we're seeing red between these 2 drivers, and well, we will try and get a replay of what exactly has happened there very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, but I wouldn't be surprised if there might be some words between the 2 drivers down in the pit lane. I think it would be the equivalent of something along the lines of what would be a Jason Plato, and well, the driver's name escapes me right now with regards to the other BTCC driver who used to have arguments with Matt Neal. There's the name. I can imagine that there might be some words between between them as the whole field now absolutely gathered behind. And Lewis Delmont, oh my good lord, jumping up onto 2 wheels. I don't think that's legal. And well, as they come on through, Lewis Delmont being ejected out of the race into turn 6 and 7. And well, what on earth happened there is the big question. And what I can't really tell you at the moment, but what I can tell you is this race has suddenly just been catapulted up to 11 in terms of the intensity, as it's also Wojciech Swiatek missed the front bumper. Did he make contact to the rear of Lewis Delmont? That will be the question that we need to try and get the answer to, because that front bumper missing would suggest yes, he perhaps did. Alternatively, he's lost out of another instant in of itself. And whilst all this is happening, we'll come back to leaders very shortly as our drivers scramble 3 wide almost down to the braking zone. Going on long there, Jaroslaw Cebula decides to go deep. I think he might have missed his braking zone, or was he pushed forward? More Jaroslaw Cebula is pushed down to P16. And meanwhile, at the front of the field, Benjamin McCluskey and Andrew Pike are fighting for the lead this race. And well, we were going to get some replays of what happened, but park those because McCluskey is having to go absolutely as defensive as humanly possible as they head onto lap 11.11 in this race. We look back from the rear of the race leader, the white flag waves, and McCluskey right now is trying to hold on just for a little bit longer as they head in towards turns 1 and 2. Through the virage centre they go, and right now Andrew Pike, it has been a long time since he's taken victory in the second race of the day in the NXTCC, but Pike right now is not too far away. The wipers are on. That's not for rain, that's to get the gravel and the chips off the windshield as best he can and give himself the best possible vision. But it is going to be a run all the way to the finish between these two, and we'll keep you apprised of other battles, including the Mason Tillotson battle for the lead of the AM class of P27. And in the Pro-Am class, Russell Fowler looks very safe in P7 at the moment for the Pro-Am win. Albeit I've said that, we're not going to try and put the commentator's curse on him. Fastest lap has just been set as a 45.673 by Dan Mould down P30. So Mould trying to take some points out of this race, if nothing else. But as McCluskey continues to hold on, we can see Pike that gets so much close under braking. That Honda just has the legs under braking, and McCluskey gets it very wrong coming out to turn 9. But it is going to be Pike who just finds a faceful there on what is the Veloster, and in turn we get a faceful of Honda Civic as they make the way down towards the hairpin. Pike on the outside now. Will he try to force McCluskey to go deep? He looks at the cutback here, but McCluskey drags the car across the apex and says, I've seen that one before. And now as it's going to be a drag race down what will be the final stretch, will Pike, as we jump on board here with the Honda driver, Mr. Fisher, he's known to the TSRC collective, was they roar the way down. Pike's going to look to the outside here. He's going to try and get the Honda to gradually sail past. It's going to be a hard-fought race between the two of them. They're side by side as they head towards the final corner, and as they head to the braking zone, Pike's not giving in, McCluskey's not giving in. They go too wide in, they're too wide through, and as they come out, McCluskey's there, he gets the drag, and as Andrew Pike makes his way in behind, Benjamin McCluskey is going to take victory in race number 2 in an incredible 2-wide finish between them. But McCluskey just holds on ahead of Andrew Pike P2, Mikey Doble P3 in the end as he comes to line, Gavin Garner P4 ahead of Jamie Dory P5, Lee Horn P6, Russell Fowler takes the Pro-Am win P7, a brilliant drive from the Rhino Esports driver ahead of Wayne Douglas, Nick Clemens and William Guthrie. Kieran Smartfish is P11, second place Pro-Am ahead of what we just has to be with Ben Gregory P13, guaranteed in that reverse grid, taking third place in the Pro-Am class. Lewis Mason makes it back-to-back AM wins P27 ahead of Craig Tillotson, who huffed and puffed all the way, but he couldn't quite take the victory this time around today. But he took P2 in class, and Dylan Hunter recovering well after a difficult race 1 to take third place in the AM class for P31. Well, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a way to wrap up our second race of the day. A 2-wide run all the way through the final 2 quarters between Benjamin McCluskey and Andrew Pike, as we do see there P33 Marcel Fritsch finishes race P4 in the AM class. Another solid finish there for the AM Championship leader, and was our last drivers to come to line, including Sammy Aribo, who takes P8 in the AM class, P37 overall for Quartermass Motorsport, just ahead of William Kurtler, who fell towards the end of the race after trying to chase after a 1-2 again for Aztec Racing. More the last of drivers coming to line, Andy Fox as well, P39, another difficult race for the Goldwing Motorsport driver. And well, that concludes our racing results. But meanwhile, let's look back to the front of that field and Benjamin McCluskey versus Andrew Pike. And we'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I think there's only one thing we can do with regards to these two, and that brilliant battle between them. I think we need to take a look back at their fight going into the final couple of corners, and well, here is the replay. And this was side by side as they made their way down the Casanova Straight. You can see Pike looking around the outside there as he tried to force it to the inside of what would be turn 14. And McCluskey in the end, respecting Pike was there. They went too wide in, but as they exit, noticing there that Pike slightly went over the apex curb, and as a result, being on two wheels for a brief moment, just broke his traction, and it was McCluskey who could take the win of the day. And Pike did everything to try and tail his way through, but it wasn't to be. But what a battle between them, and McCluskey already in the pit lane, and he will be as jubilant as can be as our drivers come into the pit. And well, as they do, it's been a great race number 2, and it sets us up a great scene for race number 3. But how exactly did all of our drivers finish, I hear you ask? Well, here come the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, a phenomenal race number 2 resulted in Benjamin McCluskey taking a victory for NXTGEN Pink ahead of Andrew Pike for the Sim Racing Collective. Mikey Doble finished P3 for Doble Sim Racing there, 4 seconds off of the top 2. And of course, I think we'll be ruined and frustrated at what could have been a win, albeit that altercation with Wayne Douglas that saw both he and also Isaac Doble collected at turns, 6 and 7, completely upsetting the apple cart. Gavin Garner, P4 there, leading home a 4-5 for NXTGEN Pink ahead of teammate Jamie Dory, when Lee Horn, P6 for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners, halving his deficit to the lead position after that P12 start. And then Russell Fowler, a Pro-Am winner here today with that P7 overall for Rhino Esports, and just simply having to keep out of trouble to take the victory. Wayne Douglas was P8 for Douglas Motorsport, and well, I think there might be words between him and some of his rivals down the paddock after this race, but taking that P8 all the same, head of Nick Clevins for iRacing Esports, and William Guthrie completed the top 10 for Full Tilt Motorsport. Kieran Smart, runner-up in the Pro-Am class, P11 for Track Scotland, head of Jaroslaw Cebula, the NXTGEN Pink driver, fighting hard to a P12 finish, but 9 today's really not going his way, but picking up small slivers of points, and that's all he seems to be able to do at the moment. And Ben Gregory wrapping up the Prime podium there, P13 overall, and the Full Tilt Motorsport driver guaranteeing his spot in the reverse grid for the final race of the day. Alan McCain for iRacing Esports and Wojciech Swierdijk round off the top 15 finishing positions, with Lewis Delmont for SO NXTGEN Gold inheriting the 15th place points as a result of Swierdijk being a guest driver, and therefore from the SO NXTGEN Gold driver, it was the iRacing Esports' Sam Smith P17 ahead of Sam Bradley, and behind the two Sams completing the top 20, it was Joe Doble ahead of teammate Isaac Doble for Doble Sim Racing after what was an upsetting end for the pair. Matthew Sheraton P21 ahead of Michael Lees, and then Adam Delmont with P23 takes the final eligible reverse grid position of P23, and that draw's coming up very shortly. Reese Waters P24 just missing out, but ahead of James Smaskersgow, and then Stuart Winnes P26. Behind the Track Scotland driver, it was your AM winner, making it 2 wins out of 2 in the AM class so far today. P27 for Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing, just fending off the challenge and the advances of Craig Tillotson for Rhino Academy, who takes the run-up AM spot. And then we could see completing the top 30, it was Jake Pitt and Dan Mould, before we come to our third place AM finisher, Dylan Hunter. Behind the DH Racing driver is Tom Davidson, and then Marcel Fritsch, Callum Murray and Andy Chell completing what's the run to P6 in the AM class. Mark Sykes P36 ahead of Sammy Ariba, and then William Kurtler P38, and a frustrating race for him ahead of Andy Fox, who's your last lead lap finisher. To complete the top 40 lap down, it was Sam Van Olst, but ahead of Eduardo Gonzaga, Alex Meredith, then 3 laps down Sean Dobie, 4 down Daniel Fritz, and unfortunate non-finishers as classified for Ben Altrier and Gabriel Yilmaz. So 46 starters, and in the end 44 finishers, ladies and gentlemen, of which we saw 39 on the lead lap. But after a crazy ending to what was race number 2, well, we do have one more race to come, of course. But the big question that sits amongst that race is, where will we reverse the grid from? And as we cut to the commentary booth, good evening to you all, and I hope you're enjoying the races so far. It's great to see so many of you in the chat giving your thoughts on all the racing, and it does look as though you're all enjoying yourselves. But without further ado, as always, we have the NXTGEN Racing Lottery Bowl, and what we're going to do very shortly is close our eyes and draw 2 balls out of the bowl. And after what was, if my memory serves me correctly, a top 17 reverse grid at Knockhill, we've had relatively low numbers this season. Will we see a much higher number today, or will the trend, or is the lower numbers continue? Well, let's find out. And that's the first shuffle. And ball number 1 is out of the bowl. And it is going to be, well, the number 6 makes another appearance this season. That is the 3rd time this season the number 6 has appeared. So we're going to have another relatively low grid. I can promise you these balls are not rigged. But what we will do is now take the other ball out of the bowl. And what will it be? We do a small shuffle. And we do a draw. And to join the number 6, where it is at the opposite ends of the spectrum today, we will have a top 18 reverse grid because it is 6 and 12, and that does mean, without further ado, that it will be Sam Bradley who takes reverse grid pole, and he will be joined on the front row by Sam Smith. It will be the tale of two Sams in race number 3. The prime drivers there will look to do battle, and behind them will be Lewis Delman and Wojciech Swierdajc. How will it all play out? Well, for all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, we encourage you to come back in approximately 8 to 9 minutes time for the build-up to race number 3 to find out how the story concludes in Montreal. But until then, of course, we'll leave you with a word from our title sponsor for this season, and that is Doble Motorcycles. We will see you very shortly. If you are looking to buy your next two-wheeled machine or ATV, why not consider Doble Motorcycles? Home to an expansive full range of Honda motorcycles, scooters, off-road bikes and ATVs, Doble Motorcycles is the UK's leading Honda motorcycle dealer. However, do not just take our word for it. Having won numerous awards over the years, including 3 Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year awards, and being nominated for many more, including Honda Dealer of the Year 4 times, the Doble family-run business prides itself on customer service, and it shows. Add to this the family's rich racing history through 3 generations, as currently embodied by Mikey Doble Racing, with Mikey chasing glory in the BTCC, and you can be certain that you'll receive excellent customer service from lights out to checkered flag. So if you'd like to know more, check out their website today at doble.co.uk. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycle store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen, one final time today here in the city of Montreal in Canada for the one and only round number 7 of season 8 of the NXTCC powered by Doble Motorcycles. Race number 1 was topsy-turvy due to changeable conditions in qualifying, a drying circuit and some very eager launches at the start. And in race number 2 we thought things might settle down a little bit, but it was far from the contrary. There was drama, there was battling all the way through from lights out to checker flag. And now as we made our way into race number 3, well, what is there to be expected? Well, firstly, we do have to expect, of course, what will be a top 18 reverse grid, and that could always serve to shuffle things up even more. And it does mean we have primes lined up on the front row, and well, that is only going to add to the mix, as we do have in particular Sam Bradley starting right on that front row. And well, the big question is, can we get a word perhaps with Sam in the run into the final race of the day? Well, there is the SO NXTGEN Gold driver, but can we grab a quick word? We will see what we can do, ladies and gentlemen, because we always love to get a pat through to our drivers when we can. And well, I can tell you that the car Sam Bradley does have a microphone through to it in his all pink outfit there. Well, man does definitely stand very tall, and well, let's see if we can grab a word from him whilst we've got a minute to go. So as we get a pat through to the car for Sam Bradley. Sam, have you got a quick minute?
I have, mate.
Sam, well, as you just managed to keep it out the wall there at the War Champions, I can imagine races 1 and 2, middle ground races with some good battling, and now you find yourself right at the front of the field for race 3. How are you feeling for it?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm definitely not the fastest round here. I've got Sam Smith that I've been with for the first 2 races. I've got Lewis Delmont, which has already shown more pace than me. I'm just going to try and make the car as wide as I can for as long as possible, I think.
Well, sensible strategy there, and we look forward to seeing how you get on. Of course, we'll have to leave you now because you've only got about 30 seconds, but good luck for race number 3.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
So just a very quick word there with our prime pole sitter, given the fact we've got to be cognizant of the amount of time we do have before they do head to the grid, and therefore we don't want to put our drivers under any more mental pressure than needs be. They already have the commentator's curse to worry about. Sam Bradley there saying, not feeling as though he's the fastest out there, but given the fact that he's had exchanges with Sam Smith, who'll be starting along the front row with him over the course of the racing today, could we see some fireworks between them? Well, it's time to find out, ladies and gentlemen, because it is time for our final race of this round. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our final of our 3 races here. Starting on pole position, it is none other than Sam Bradley, who we just heard from for SO NXTGEN Gold. Sam Smith starts P2 for iRacing Esports alongside him. It'll be the battle of the 2 Sams, but there'll be a Lewis behind him in the form of Lewis Delmont, who starts P3, behind his teammate Sam Bradley for SO NXTGEN Gold. And can they pull off a 1-2 and a bit of daylight robbery? Well, Wojciech Swierdowicz starts P4 for Semper Racing, and having launched his way up there, he'll be looking to try and get ahead of the pack and run off into the distance. And then we have Alan McCain for iRacing Esports starting P5 ahead of Ben Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport P6, looking for redemption after what was a race 2 that went amiss. Jaroslaw Cebula starts P7 for NXTGEN Pink, and hoping that in this race he can have a better result compared to races 1 and 2 and claw back some points, with Kieran Smart alongside him P8 for Track Scotland. And to complete the top 10, it's William Guthrie at P9 for Full Tilt Motorsport, and iRacing Esports is Nick Clemens P10 out of that top 10. Wayne Douglas starts P11 for Douglas Motorsport after the altercations we did see between him and the Doble sim racing machines in what was race number 2. And there'll be Russell Fowler P12 there for Rhino Esports. And outside the top 12, we then do see on row number 7 Lee Horn for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners and Jamie Dory for NXTGEN Pink. On row number 8, it's Gavin Garner for NXTGEN Pink ahead of Mikey Doble for Doble Sim Racing. And speaking of Michaels in the Doble family, we do say hello to Mike Doble there, father of Mikey, Isaac and Joe. And hope you're doing well, Mike. And then we do have Andrew Pike starting P17 for the Sim Racing Collective ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, your winner in race number 3. And the NXTGEN Pink driver will be looking to try and claw his way through the field into that top 10, but knowing the points will be coming if he can fight for them. Joe Doble starts P19 for Doble Sim Racing ahead of Isaac Doble, the 2 Doble Sim Racing brothers there, knowing they've got it all to do from the back end of the top 20. And P21, it's Matthew Shepton, the 390 for Aztec Racing, who after difficulties at the start of race number 1, well, he's made his way up the field into P21 in race 2, and now he's got more to do in this race. How far can he go? He's got the company of Michael Lees for JWM Motorsport P22, and on row number 12, it's Adam Delmont for SO NXTGEN Gold and Reese Watt for JWM Motorsport, who started off race 2 strongly. However, it all went wrong midway through, and now he knows he's got a lot to do in this race if he wants to recover some key points. We then have on row number 13, James Smanson's for Aztec Racing ahead of Stuart Winus of Track Scotland in what has been a frustrating day so far, but can he end on high? Lewis Mason, your 2 out of 2 and winner, will be going for 3 out of 3 here, starting P27 for Aztec Racing, but he's got the company of the fast charger Craig Tillotson for Renault Academy alongside him, and then we do have completing what is the top 30, Jake Pitt for Aztec Racing and Dan Mould for NXTGEN Gold. Dylan Hunter starts P31 for DH Racing ahead of Tom Davidson for the Sim Racing Collective. Marcel Fritsch begins this race P33 for Renault Academy ahead of Callum Murray for NXTGEN Gold, and then we do have Andy Chell P35 for Courtmass Motorsport ahead of Mark Sykes P36 for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners Racing, and then we have behind them on row number 19 Sammy Ariba for Courtmass Motorsport and William Kurtler for Aztec Racing, with top 40 being completed by Andy Fox for Goldwing Motorsport and Sam Van Ols for Goldwing, his teammate, and Goldwing really hoping they can salvage something out of the races here today. Eduardo Gonzaga starts P41, the Brazilian driver for National Racing Team, who's had 2 very difficult races so far, and he won't be wanting to make it 3 out of 3. Alex Meredith starts P42 for NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners after what's that early incident in race 2. Then we have Sean Doby on what is P43 for ATX Racing ahead of Ben Altria. The 42 will be Motorsport driver, then be followed up by Gabriel Yilmaz, who starts P45 last but not least for Aztec Racing, and it will be a 45 car grid for our final race of round number 7 of the championship. And as all the drivers get themselves into positions, we are only now waiting for what is the lights to go on for one more time today. It's going to be a long run down towards turn number 1 for Sam Bradley. One of the longest runs in life, if you will. And as those lights go on, can he hold on to lead? When it's going to be 3, 4, 5 red lights, and it's lights out, and away we go here for race number 3 at Montreal. And as they roar away, Sam Bradley gets a perfect start. Further back, we see a couple cars into the barrier. Marcel Fritsch already turned into the barrier before they've made it to the line. And as the driver's coming down, well, Sam Bradley nails the start. Lewis Delman dives to the inside, takes P2 off of Sam Smith, and now the field ushers its way on through the opening corners. Everybody right now scrambling for positions. Joe Doble there trying to cut his way on through, working with Mikey Doble as they make their way in towards turns 3 and 4, and as they head up towards turn 3, 4 now into the chicane, we can see there's a little bit of argy-bargy between Fowler and what is there Mikey Doble. Joe Doble just watches behind and finds himself being stalled out there as they go into turn 5, not quite able to make any more progress, but all the drivers now heading on down, and as they do, looking further back, Lewis Mason, who's really cleared the rest of the AM class at the start. He's up to P25, finds himself on the outside of turns what is at 6 and 7, but a great start from Mason, dropping the rest of the AM field and just trying to run with it now as the drivers head on down towards what is turns 8 and 9. But as they come on down, we look to Jaroslaw Cebula, who's got pressure behind him from Ben Gregory, but Cebula has had a good start to talk about as he makes his way out a left-hander and up towards turn number 10 he makes his way. Andrew Pike, meanwhile, has had a nightmare moment. Well, I think it's Andrew Pike and Lee Horn as well, both had nightmares through the chicane, and well, Pike in particular has dropped a long way down. Lee Horn has disappeared off our time town, not quite sure what's happened there, but Pike right now, who started P17, well, he's dropped down to at 19 there, as that is going to be Michael Lees making his way up the inside, and out to the corner they go, and onwards towards what will be turns 13 and 14. But meanwhile, well, at the front of the field, what we can see there is Sam Bradley still holding on for the time being. By 3 attempts they head their way in towards turns 13 and 14. Right into left they go, and after one lap as the headlights come on, the daylight is descending here, but we'll be racing into sunset. Sam Bradley leaves. So he is on to lap number 2. The number 69 is Sam Bradley, who's running a nice one up front, ahead of Lewis Delmont, his teammate, followed by Sam Smith. The top 3 are Pro-Ams. Then we have guest driver Wojciech Swierdajc, P4, the leading pro, ahead of Alan McCain. Jaroslaw Cebula, P6, exactly where he needs to be, ahead of Ben Gregory, P7. William Guthrie, P8, Nick Williams, P9, and Jamie Dorey completes your top 10 with Kieran Smart, best of the rest, P11. And as they head up towards the next set of chicanes, well, meanwhile, back in the AMP class, we have got here Lewis Mason trying to carve his way past Tom Davidson, but look at this battling and what it's done. It's brought Craig Tillotson right up behind him, but Alex Meredith now is going to intervene and say, well, I want to be a part of this. And as they head onto the brakes, Alex Meredith now sandwiches himself between the 2 AMP drivers, and meanwhile, just behind them, Eduardo Gonzaga and also Sammy Ariba now queuing up behind what is Craig Tillotson here, trying to get involved as they head down towards the second chicane. Ariba in the end watching on as Gonzaga goes to the inside, tries to cut it back there with a dummy, but in the end it stalls it out on the apex curve in terms of doesn't quite pick up the speed that he would like, and Eduardo Gonzaga absolutely attacking here, and Craig Tillotson I think looking vulnerable. I don't think Tillotson feels comfortable as they make the way in towards what is turns 8 and 9. Side by side they go towards the braking zone, and there's the proof there as Gonzaga tries to force the door open, can't get it. Meanwhile, Sammy Ariba having to hold off William Kurt Lewis. Ben Altrier sneaks as well at the inside, so this AM class is absolutely coming alive here as they head deeper and deeper into race number 3. There's more battling to come. We've got a car pointing the wrong way. That's not where you normally park a car at Montreal, and William Guthrie is just in the barrier. We'll try and understand how that's happened, but from that we come back towards the very front of the field. There's pandemonium in action everywhere you look, and well, as we can see here, Sam Bradley battling with Lewis Delmont. Delmont up the inside, lets his teammate go to Sam Bradley, albeit I think they had no choice, and now here comes Sam Smith. It's the battle of the two Sams for P2. Lewis Delmont now leads onto lap 3, but it's going to be Bradley who finds himself very vulnerable as Smith has got all the momentum. Wojciech Swierdowicz watches behind here, really just playing the game of waiting. Smith on the inside, and Indian has to miss out as now it's going to be Swierdowicz carving back to the inside, gets ahead of Smith. Smith is giving the elbow out there, and now Smith drops down to P5, having had Jaroslaw Cebula sneak on through. And Cebula here, well, Swierdowicz and Cebula previously teammates at Semper Racing in the NXTCC, but not this season, and I wouldn't be surprised there. Cebula will be saying under his breath, thank you Wojciech for helping him get on through and move up another place overall. But as they come through turn number 5 in towards 6, there's still plenty of distance to go in this race, but right now Wojciech Swierdowicz and Jaroslaw Cebula really the only two pros inside this top 5 battle, and then the next pro will be Jamie Dory, the next gen pink driver down in P8, who's got Wayne Douglas behind him, albeit Wayne Douglas under increasing pressure from what is a Kieran Smart. As you can see, they're just going underneath the bottom of your camera, and now they become the centre of our cameraman's focus of attention as they head in towards turns 8 to 9. But notice how they roar their way in towards the next braking zone, but no change between these two drivers. And then we do look back to Lewis Mason, and well, Mason still clear of what is the AM field as Eduardo Gonzaga up the inside there for the curvature of the run towards turn 8, gets into P2 ahead of Craig Tillotson, and well, now that means P28 overall for Gonzaga, and his next target will be the AM lead, albeit he's got some time to close down. But Gonzaga right now is absolutely flying after a frustrating races 1 and 2. Well, the man has saved all his energy up for race number 3, and it's definitely showing here on the TV as he comes in towards the hairpin, but goes very deep, very deep, and as he tries to bring it back together, there's carnage as he makes contact with Altrier and also Tillotson. Well, they managed to survive that, but it looks like there might be some damage on the car for Wes Gonzaga in particular. In fact, I think that might have been debris and gravel coming up on the left-hand side, given how wide he ran out the corner. But I think that was a very overzealous run into turn 10, and he pays the price as Sammy Ariba picks off not just 1, but 2 AMs, and he moves up to P2 in the class as he heads in towards the World Champion chicane. And Sammy Ariba here, the number 99 driver, not one to let an opportunity be squandered, and Tillotson tucks in behind, but this is going to enable what is Lewis Mason to pull some more daylight between. You can see Mason off in the distance as Dan Mould is into the pit lane as I look at my commentary booth window, and I think today is going to end up on a dismal note for the SL NXTGEN Gold driver. But as they all head into the next lap, well, we can see here Ariba right now just trying to hold on to what is that podium position, and this would be a huge result for the Quartermaster Motorsport driver, given the team have had very mixed fortunes over the last 5 rounds in the championship. But Ariba will be absolutely jumping up and down, enjoy if he can bring home this podium, even more so if he can bring home a class win. And well, from him we look back to inside the top 20, and Isaac Doble still trying to keep Matthew Sheraton at bay as they come out of turn 6 and 7, and I believe Sheraton may have a slowdown there because he's going quite slow on the exit of the corner, tucked back into the running order, and that releases Reese Watt to take P8 off him in the prime class, P18, so therefore those two exchanging places, but not the way they wanted to through battling, although I think Reese Watt won't have minded that because now he can make a bit more progress. But speaking of progress here, well, right now Lewis Delmont is trying to prevent progress for Wojciech Swierdowicz, and with the younger member of the Delmont family, I think he's not going to have a choice here, as it looks though it's going to be Swierdowicz who just out-drags him on the run down the final stretch up towards the World Champion chicane down the Casino Straight, and you can see that Jaroslaw Cebula tucking in the tie. And if you're Lewis Delmont at this point, surely what you've got to be thinking, and there is no point fighting this, because if he fights this, he's only going to cost himself time. And well, right now, if he and Sam Bradley were to finish as they were, well, it means it's a 1-2 in the prime class at SL NXTGEN Gold. And for Lewis Delmont, it will be his first ever prime win, and it will be his first ever overall podium, and that would be incredibly special. And I get the feeling that Father Adam, who is a bit further down the order, would be absolutely proud of his son. As Cebula dives up the inside there, you can see Lewis gives it all the space, backs off as it's going to be an overcooked run into turns 1 and 2 for Jaroslaw Cebula, but very eager to get that done. And you can feel from the body language of the car there how Cebula really eager to make sure he gets this win in this race, given the fact that race number 1 he was anonymous, in race number 2 he picked up scraps of points, but right now this is the race that can completely turn the fortunes of races 1 and 2 upside down versus his championship rival Mikey Doble, who went into this round 20 points ahead. And well, the way things stand, I do believe provisionally we will still see Mikey Doble leading, but that advantage won't have grown anywhere near as much as it could have if results had gone a bit differently over the last 2 races. So therefore for Cebula, this is a very important one with 3 rounds to go after today, and drop scores course, will have a bigger impact as we go to the very end of the season, but more on that story at the end of today's broadcast. But as our drivers continue to push on, we can see Cebula almost running it to the wall and starting to leave Lewis Delmont behind to a degree. Sam Bradley, meanwhile, has lost out versus Alan McCain. Now, that has happened whilst all this exchange has been going on, but how has McCain made his way past Sam Bradley, where it's happened on this lap? And here is a quick replay. Well, as we can see here, Alan McCain battling side by side with what was Sam Bradley, and McCain there on the inside. I get the feeling Bradley, after what was our pre-race interview with him, where Sonny didn't feel as though he had the pace, well, it's showing it there, not wanting to fight this too hard, but I think also Bradley would just be very happy to get his first Pro-Am podium of the season, given it's his first season in the Pro-Am class, and well, to take a podium, that would be a huge achievement, given the fact that his results this season so far have definitely been middle of the pack in Pro-Am. And that's not to besmirch him or belittle his reputation, but he's openly admitted it to me in pre-race discussions, the fact this season has really been a learning experience, and so has his experience here racing at Montreal, a circuit he's never raced at until today. But as they come on through, well, we meanwhile look a little bit further down the order on your live pictures, and we do look back to that AM lead battle, and this is Lewis Mason trying to make it 3 wins out of 3 here in Montreal today, and with a gap so far always 1.2 seconds, but Sammy Ariba is closing it down little by little. Last lap there from Lewis Mason, 49.87. Meanwhile for Sammy Ariba, well, in fact a 48.04 as my tone screen's updated. For Sammy Ariba, a 47.89, so 1.5 tenths closed up by Sammy Ariba, as meanwhile there has been an incident for Dylan Hunter that has forced him all the way down the order. I believe Hunter's had to be towed to the pit, and what's happened to the DH Racing driver? Well, here's a quick replay to explain. So this was coming down into what looks to be the, oh goodness me, well, we are not quite sure what's happened to Dylan Hunter there. Well, he's rematerialised from the ether, so I think there was a connectivity issue, and he's just gone straight on into the barrier there. That was the World Champion chicane, so I think there's been a major technical issue there, and well, for Hunter, his race has just come to an absolutely brutal halt, and well, hopefully he's all okay. But coming back to live pictures, and for Gavin Gardner at least in P13, things are going okay so far in this race, although I think he'd like to make a bit more progress, given the fact he's got a few primes in front of him and a lot of pros queuing up behind him gradually. But speaking of that queuing up, well, these drivers here are not queuing up, they're battling side by side, and that is Russell Fowler getting very, very tasty alongside Matthew Sheraton as they come out of turn number 10 and going onwards towards what we will champion shortly. And will Sheraton, excuse me, he's now going to absolutely attack as they roar the way down this stretch to the Casino Straight. You can see the Audi starting to outpace the Elantra very gradually, but keep in mind that for Russell Fowler, he does have the maximum prime success ballast in that car, the best part of what is, my memory serves me correctly, 32.5 kilograms, and therefore Matthew Sheraton swings it back around outside to inside, and it's a slowdown penalty for Russell Fowler. He pulls off racing line with a crumpled rear Woody's bumper area for that Audi RS3, so the Vrano Esports machine losing some ground, and Matthew Sheraton holding on to P9 in what is the Pro-Am class. They make the way on into lap number 7, and as they do, looking further up the order from one set of primes to another, was Sam Smith, who found himself elbowed down the order a little bit earlier on. We jump on board here with what is the P5 prime driver and P8 overall. He's got Ben Gregory between himself and the other Sam Bradley, and as they come through turn 6 and 7, well, these two are running as they are nose to tail with the 113 between them. Well, Gregory will just be thinking here for Full Tilt Motorsport, he's made plenty of ground and wants to gain a little bit more, but I suspect from Smith's perspective, he will be very eager to just simply try and hold on to these positions, as he does have there Joe Doble cut up the inside. Doble lightning quick there into the braking zone, but I think there was a lift from Smith which would explain it, but then he's picked up a slowdown penalty, and that's going to hurt Smith even more as there's a car to the wall there, and I think that car to the wall was Andy Chell just trying to stay out of the way of everybody with a blue flag waving. Dylan Hunter there gets tapped on the rear by Wayne Douglas. Wayne Douglas sends Dylan Hunter onwards, and Hunter goes out of camera shot there into the runoff area, and I think that was Hunter just trying to get out of the way, and Douglas in here not anticipating the movements. And whilst all that is happening, William Kirtler battling side by side with Eduardo Gonzaga. Well, Tillerson has cleared these guys in recent laps, and I think there's been a bit of an altercation in the AM battle, the AM podium spots, but as they come up towards what will be turn number 10, from one side to the other, it's two as they're racing cars, and Kirtler in contact there with Gonzaga, and also clipping what is none other than Gabriel Yilmaz. All three of them come together, and Sean Dobie and Marcel Fritsch just simply tiptoe their way through the scene of the chaos and the carnage, and in the end, the Scotsman, we moves up into P4 in the AM class. Gabriel Yilmaz immediately comes back at him, but I suspect Dobie here will just try and steer clear of any more danger, and well, what on earth happened there? That's a question of which we will get a replay of very shortly to explain, but we stay with this battle right now as Dobie having to defend hard here into the World Champion chicane. Yilmaz is going to try and go around the outside, and depending on the damage, will he come into the pits? Well, no, he doesn't, and Sean Doble, in the end, does hold on to the position, at least come the end of this lap. As they head up towards the timing line and on to lap number 8, we get a replay of what happened from on board with Eduardo Gonzaga. Let's listen in. And in the end, where it looks as though there, Gonzaga trying to position himself between the two Aztec racing cars, making that contact with Kurtler, was trying to come across to cover off the centre inside of the attacking position. And, well, the two made haste together. And then we did see Gabriel Yilmaz as well being collected, but able to carry on a bit more succinctly. And that was the story of their battle, at least from onboard with Eduardo Gonzaga. But, of course, that goes to the stewards. They have plenty more camera angles available to them. But coming back to live pictures, and Jamie Dory, they're serving a slowdown and releasing Sam Bradley and Ben Gregory, as we do see Sam Smith having to try and hold on. A bit of a tap there from Joe Doble to the rear of Smith's car, but no love lost between them as they head out of 10 on towards 11 and 12. But the drivers power their way on down towards the Casino Straight, and as they charge their way, well, meanwhile, all the way up at the front of the field, already 5 seconds clear, is Wojciech Swidowicz, who takes a huge chunk there at the apex of turn 14. And the number 80 driver, well, I think he might have to lift to serve a bit of a slowdown there, at least bring the car back under control, and that will release Jaroslaw Cebula into the lead of this race onto lap number 9. And as they come across that timeline, Lewis Delmont still holding on here for the final podium spot overall and for the Pro-Am lead. But look at Alan McCain, who has caught up arm over fist over the last couple of laps and is right there with them as they come out of turn number 2. But as he heads up towards what is at 3 and 4, well, Lewis Delmont will try to channel some tricks of the trade, and I can definitely see that the YouTube chat, Phil McDougall, cheering on Lewis Delmont here as he tries to bring home his first ever Pro-Am win. He's still got his 3 laps, including this one, to go, and with a 4.5 second gap to Sam Bradley. Well, right now Lewis Delmont's got no teammates to work with, but he has got a lot of circuit, and he's got a very capable Honda under his fingertips for SO and Extra Gold, and that's what he's got to try and pride himself on in order to hold on to this result all the way to the very end. But will he be able to? That is the big question. In terms of other battles as well, we are keeping one eye on what is the AM lead battle between Mason and Ariba, with the Quartermass Motorsport driver still 1 second over Mason and not really closing or gaining at the moment. So therefore, as he run out of a bit of momentum, as we do see McCain going a bit wide out of the third chicane and making contact with the exit wall of turn number 9. There's just a brief light tap, but still that will upset his momentum slightly. And from them, looking further back, here comes Ben Gregory trying to take the final spot on the Prime podium, and P5 with it, looking around the outside. Can Gregory get the job done for Full Tilt Motorsport? The answer is not quite yet, but then again, now he will be able to use the Elantra's top end and its acceleration to his advantage versus the Honda of Bradley, and well, it'll be a drag race all the way down the stretch here. But as they make the way past our static cameras, well, here you can see the difference in gradual momentum building on the two cars, and Gregory now looking around the outside. Bradley still holding on too wide they come in towards the braking zone here for turns 13 and 14, and Gregory around the outside. Bradley defending the inside as best he could, but in the end it's Ben Gregory who has taken that place as they head on towards the penultimate lap, and an absolutely smooth move there for Gregory. And when in fact it's a slowdown for Gregory, well, we're singing his praises, and Sam Bradley takes it back there, and Ben Gregory's forced back. So Sam Bradley now, so long as he doesn't make a mistake of his own, is practically confirmed to be P3 Pro-Am here in this race, given the gap he does have to Sam Smith of what is now 4 seconds or so. And Michael Lees is battling still there, and look at this long pack of cars with Wayne Douglas and Joe Doble at the head of it, still fighting each other. And well, therefore it is right now a long train of cars all chasing after the top 5, but the top 5 are well clear as they head in towards what we turn number 5. But here it's going to be absolute pandemonium, because you can see it's 2 by 2 by 2 as they come down to the braking zone, and at the front of it all, well, that is the car which I'm trying to discern now. I think that's Sam Bradley who has fallen into the clutch to this. I think Bradley may have picked up a penalty of his own, because he's suddenly fallen all the way back into this, or at least made a mistake. And if so, well, the commentator strikes the SO and Extra Gold driver, albeit for a brief moment. And well, now he's got to try and just hold on for a little bit longer as they come out of turns 8 and 9. But this is a race that continues to prove to be unpredictable from quarter to quarter and lap to lap as they head in towards the turn 10 hairpin. Wayne Douglas at the foreground of your camera zooms off into the distance, and Sam Bradley with Joe Doble trying to look up the inside. Well, that is Sam Smith, and well, the two drivers that started on the front row of the grid of Sam Bradley and Sam Smith, well, the battle of the two Sams is now back here once again, as meanwhile that is getting very, very temperamental there coming out of the hairpin. I can see a lot of flashing lights from Andrew Pike. He's not too happy with the way Michael Lees has been defending, I would suspect. But as the drivers head up towards what will be turns 13 and 14 to complete lap number 10, well, I think they'll have to put the differences aside and continue on the racing. But you can see further back there, that's almost three wide as Ada Delmont decides to back off there and tuck in Mikey Doble looking for a move. Oh, there's a tap. There's a tap from Kieran Smart to the rear of Reese Watts into the wall. And Watts' race comes to an abrupt halt. And well, that Audi RS3 has lost its rear left suspension. You can see the car literally hanging downwards. He's going to try and carry on Reese Watt, but I don't think that car's going to make it to the end. And if he does, no, there it is. It's gone. And I suspect that's going to be a tow to the pits. As meanwhile, our race leader, Jaroslaw Cebula, is in a very comfortable lead at 1.3 seconds over Wojciech Swierdaj and is just running off into the distance with this one. Looking back, and down to the AM lead battle, this is Lee Horn passing Lewis Mason, but that's for overall position, not AM class. But Mason out of sorts there through Virage Senna, and as a result of that, now finds Sammy Arriba back within 1 second of him. Now, can the Quartermass Motorsport Audi catch up? Well, that's a big question, and I think the answer, based on the trends we've seen so far, is he's going to need to pull off a Goliath of a lap if he wants to do so. But with 6 seconds between himself and Craig Tillotson, he can afford to push this lap, and in the end, if he makes a mistake, as long as he doesn't put it in the wall, well, he'll still be coming home in P2. But he would love to bring home that win as Lewis Mason tries to make it 3 out of 3 and is just looking to be in control as they come out of turns 6 and 7 down towards 8-9 they go. From them we look back to Sam Bradley, who is battling with Ben Gregory, and well, these two, they were separated as a result of a slowdown for Gregory, and Bradley goes very deep. Gregory cuts back to the inside and it's going to be a smooth return move, and Ben Gregory takes P4 in the prime class. But looking back to the very front, well, this man, he had a race 1 not to talk about, a race 2 that was about gathering some points, and as he comes out the final corner, this is a critical race for his championship campaign, and Jaroslaw Cebula has nailed it by taking victory in race number 3 overall ahead of Wojciech Swierdaj P2. Lewis Delmont will bring on home his first ever prime win, and with it his first ever overall podium for SO NXTGEN Gold in a defiant drive ahead of Alan McCain, who is the prime runner-up P4. Wayne Douglas comes home P5 ahead of Joe Doble P6. Then it will be Sam Smith P7 at 3rd place on the prime podium. iRacing Esports ahead of Ben Gregory, with Jamie Dory, Sam Bradley and Gavin Garner completing the top 10. When in fact it'll be Gavin Garner P11, I should say. Sam Bradley completes the top 10 in a solid drive. We've still got the question of the AM win, and in the end it will be 3 out of 3 for Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing, who delivers once again in the final race of the day. Fend off Sammy Arriba to 1 second at the line, with the Quartermass Motorsport driver taking the runner-up spot in the AM class. And whilst it won't be the win, the team will be absolutely jubilant at the fact the 99 driver did a fantastic job in driving all the way home, and Craig Tillotson in the end bringing home the final spot on the AM podium. And Will Tillotson also shining high today for Verano Academy, it must be said. But what a race to wrap up proceedings here today in Montreal. And as Andy Fox comes to line in what has been a very bitter day to swallow, and P36, the Goldwyn Motorsport driver, will know it's not been around to remember, and indeed that seems to be the theme of his season after what was a great season 7 in the prime class. Eduardo Gonzalo across the line P37, and he'll be your last lead lap finisher. But as our drivers make the way down their cool-down lap, well, for Cebula, it has definitely been a race where I think he'll be absolutely ecstatic. And, well, we look on board there and we'll take it nice and easy. But for Cebula, a race where everything worked out as needed in the end, and we're absolutely needing that result, given the fact that it was otherwise looking to be Mikey Doble's day to shine once again, but not so. And Mikey Doble in the P15, and it definitely will be a day where both drivers could have had more points, but it wasn't to be for them. And as drivers come into the pit lane, will Lewis Delmont making his way on down, celebrates as he comes into the pit lane. He knows what he's done, and the SO NXTGEN Gold driver taking his first ever prime win, his first ever overall podium. He'll be absolutely ecstatic when he gets out of the car and then look into the AM class. Well, a man who has been indomitable today in the AM class, Lewis Mason. The L plate may be on the back of the car to show that he's one of the learners at Aztec Racing, but I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I think one circuit he doesn't need to learn anymore is the circuit of Montreal, because at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Lewis Mason was the king of the AM class, no questions asked. And whilst many of his rivals may have had pace to match him, nobody was close enough to beat him over the 11-lap distance. As we take a look to the scenic view, we take a look to the race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, after what has been 11 laps to be remembered in our final race of the day in round 7 of season 8 of the NXTGEN Racing Touring Car Championship, brought to you on iRacing and powered by Doble Motorcycles, And Jaroslaw Cebula took victory for Next Gen Pink by 9/10 of a second over Semper Race's Wojciech Swierdajc. Cebula knowing that he needed that victory in order to limit the damage that was done by Mikey Doble. Lewis Delmont, P3, taking the final spot in the overall podium, and with it his first ever prime win, his first ever overall podium for SO and NXTGEN Gold, and the number 23 driver. They'll be absolutely filled with joy, and I can only imagine that Father Adam will be absolutely ecstatic about his son. Alan McCain, P4 there for iRacing Esports, runner-up in the Prime class, did everything to try and get ahead of Lewis Delmont, but in the end, the younger member of the Delmont family was just too much for Northern Irishman. But for McCain, it was then Wayne Douglas, P5 for Douglas Motorsport, ahead of Joe Doble for Doble Sim Racing. Sam Smith, P7, a return to the Prime podium there for the iRacing Esports driver. Indeed, iRacing Esports picking up a huge bundle of points for their drivers in this race and in the team's championship, ahead of Ben Gregory for Full Tilt Motorsport, who will be ruining what could have been if it weren't for a couple of slowdowns over the race distance. Jamie Dory was P9 for Next Gen Pink, and there was SO and NXTGEN Gold Sam Bradley, who despite starting on pole and expecting himself to go back in this race, taking a P10 overall and with a P5 in the Prime class, his best Prime result of the season. I think he'll walk away from this one with a smile. And Gavin Garner was P11 for Next Gen Pink, ahead of teammate Benjamin McCluskey, with all the success ballast in the car in a P18 starting position. We'll know that a P12 was the best he could get out the car. Andrew Pike P13 for the Sim Racing Collective in a rather difficult race to wrap up his day, but ahead of Michael Lees for JWM Motorsport, and Mikey Doble taking the final overall points paying position for Doble Sim Racing, but knowing that with Cebula taking the victory, all his work in races 1 and 2 has been somewhat undermined. Adam Delmont, P16, ahead of Sam Van Olst, and then we did see the top 20 rounded off there by Isaac Doble, Matthew Sheraton and Tom Davidson. Nick Clemens was P21, the number 13 driver for iRacing Esports, having a bit of an anonymous day, but meanwhile Russell Fowler, after a great race 1 and race 2, a hard landing in race number 3, taking P22 there, but still some prime points to his name. Alex Meredith, P23, ahead of Dan Mould, and that early instant in this race costing Dan Mould dear, but at the same time as well, for the SO and NXTGEN Gold driver, I think he'll be looking ahead to the next round. The same for Kieran Smart, the Track Scotland driver, just not quite able to revisit the Horizon Knockhill, but ahead of Lee Horn in P26. Then it was your AM winner of Lewis Mason, P27 there for Aztec Racing, finishing where he started after race number 2, and well, 3 wins out of 3 for the number 991 driver, and what a way to get it done. Sammy Ariba, Quartermass Motorsports driver today, and a hero today in the AM class, taking P2 there in his final race of the day. And well, great result there, albeit not quite able to reach the heights of Lewis Mason. And then to complete the top 30, it was Craig Tillerson, your third place finisher in the AM class, and making a very successful day for the Verano Academy driver with multiple podiums here in Canada. And then William Guthrie, our pro driver, P30. Sean Doby, meanwhile, missed out on the AM podium, but a P4 finish going into today, of course, for ATEC Racing. Well, a lot of technical issues with the car, but able to get them resolved enough to bring home that result, and a very solid one at that. Head of Jake Pitts with Gabriel Yumaz P33, Marcel Fritsch P34, and in Stuart One is completing the top 35. The last of our lead lap finishers were Eduardo Gonzaga and Andy Fox. A lap down, it was James Smith-Scow P38, and the same could be said a lap down for Callum Murray and Dylan Hunter. Outside the top 40, P41 to Ben Altria, 2 laps down to Reese Watt and Andy Chell, 3 laps down to William Kurtler, and our sole retirement, alternatively our non-finisher as classified, Mark Sykes there, retiring with 7 laps remaining. So 45 starters, and in the end 44 finishers, and out of those we did see what was 37 finish on the lead lap, and what a race to wrap up proceedings here in Canada, ladies and gentlemen, and for our final visit as well to Canada for this season. We were here at Mosport much earlier in the season, but Montreal today had a little bit of everything, from the rain in practice, which blighted qualifying, and the early start of what was race number 1, all the way through to the dry conditions of races 2 and 3, and this circuit has definitely delivered. And well, whilst the racing may have concluded here, of course this broadcast hasn't quite concluded, because coming up shortly, in about 10 to 12 minutes time, will be our post-round interviews with some of our drivers. Don't go anywhere, because you won't want to miss them, as we hear from the drivers themselves as to what they thought about all of the racing today and the performances. Until then, we will see you very shortly. If you are looking to buy your next two-wheeled machine or ATV, why not consider Doble Motorcycles? Home to an expansive full range of Honda motorcycles, scooters, off-road bikes and ATVs, Doble Motorcycles is the UK's leading Honda motorcycle dealer. However, do not just take our word for it. having won numerous awards over the years, including 3 Motorcycle News Dealer of the Year awards, and being nominated for many more, including Honda Dealer of the Year 4 times. The Doble family-run business prides itself on customer service, and it shows. Add to this the family's rich racing history through 3 generations, as currently embodied by Mikey Doble Racing, with Mikey chasing glory in the BTCC, and you can be certain that you'll receive excellent customer service from lights out to checkered flag. So if you'd like to know more, check out their website today at doble.co.uk. Speaking of Mikey Doble Racing, if you'd like to support Mikey as he pushes it to the limit out on track, you can do so by following the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page as seen on screen. Additionally, if you want to represent the 88 Army at a BTCC weekend, Mikey Doble Racing has some fantastic merchandise available just for you, as may be found either via the Mikey Doble Racing Facebook page or alternatively in the Doble Motorcycles store at dobledirect.co.uk. Don't miss out on being a part of the 88 Army today. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today, we're going to be hearing from a mixture of AM and Pro-Am class drivers and heroes in their own right in unique ways. Firstly, we're going to be coming to our triple winner in the AM class, Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing, who really was unstoppable here at Montreal today. Before then moving on to the Pro-Am class, for SOL NXTGEN Gold's Lewis Delmont, who had 2 top 5s in races 1 and 2 in class, only then to come home for his first ever Prime win, and with it as well his first ever overall podium as well. And then we'll be coming to Sammy Ariba, the Courtmass Motorsport AM driver, who whilst he had a difficult race 1 and 2, he absolutely delivered when it mattered most in race number 3 and brought home a podium for his glory. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to our first interviewee, and it's going to be none other than Lewis Mason, who joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Lewis, and well, what can we say other than in the AM class today, you were absolutely unstoppable at Montreal. I mean, how does it feel to have taken 3 wins out of 3?
It feels really good. Going into the race, I was just hoping to score as many points as possible, and Jonathan Collins had told me that he wasn't going to be racing today, and I'd like to try and get 3rd in AM, and currently he's 3rd, so as much as I can outscore him would be awesome. So just trying to do it as much as possible, and then just race 1, everything went right. Chose the wets, and they were fine for the first half of it. And then the second half was just trying to make sure that I let the quicker drivers through, but not the people I was fighting in class.
Well, a very sensible approach there. I do like the fact you immediately gave us that insight of the fact that you are in that rivalry for 3rd place, the AM Championship, with Jonathan Collins, who wasn't here on the grid today, like you say. But let's wind the tape back a little bit and start off with qualifying. Now, practice in the build-up to the race, we did see a little bit of rain for a brief period, and that soaked the circuit. But as qualifying went on, we saw the circuit drying. Some drivers opted to go from the wet to the dry. Others stayed on the wet because they felt as though it was the right tire at the time. Where did you find yourself in all of that?
Well, the practice yesterday was pretty similar, and I chose the wets yesterday, and it was working for the first half of the race. I think I was battling with some of the Pro-Ams yesterday, which was fun. And so I thought, well, there's not much different that can go wrong today. And so I decided to take the gamble. I was only starting 6th, so it wasn't like I was battling for any podiums or anything, just trying to see how it would go. And then everyone else just seemed to not as good starts as me, and I managed to go past them all. I think I was catching up to some of the Pro-Ams by turn 1.
Well, definitely seemed to work out for yourself. And having started P35 and qualified P6 in the class, we saw you make a lot of progress early on in race number 1. I mean, there were a couple of instances as well up front, but you seemed unperturbed by it. But at what point did you realise that, you know what, you were leading in the AM class, and also you had your teammate William Kurtler behind you in P2?
Yeah, it was when Dylan Mystery had said to me halfway around lap 1, he was like, "Oh, Lewis, by the way, I think you're in the lead of AM." And that kind of put a bit of panic into me, because usually when I'm leading, I'll end up spinning or bottling it, whatever. That's just the running joke in the team. And so I was just literally focusing, especially for race 1 during the wet sort of conditions, just focusing on keeping it on the track. And having Will behind me was just a bit of reassurance.
Well, a little bit of reassurance to your teammate. It's always good to have that, no doubt about it. But then moving towards the end of that race, there was a bit of pressure perhaps coming up behind it from some of your rivals, albeit they never quite got close. And in the end, you led home a 1-2. I mean, just take us through how that must have felt for yourself and also for Will. It's very rare we see a team achieve a 1-2 in any of the classes. We saw it in Knockhill for Track Scotland twice, but today we've seen it for yourselves in race 1. I mean, you guys must have been absolutely bouncing up and down.
Yeah, we were really happy with it. I mean, it's not usual that, I mean, sometimes we're up the front, sometimes we're not. Gabriel's been doing quite good this season. I know he's in the fight for the lead of the championship, but me and Will are like in and around sort of the top 3 sometimes. But yeah, it was really nice for us to both get 1-2.
Oh, definitely. And then going into race number 2, we saw a great start from both yourself and Will, but it looked as though as the race went on, it was going to be your race to lead. And of course, Will then did fall back a bit. We did see some growing pressure, however, behind you from none other than Craig Tillerson. Were you worried about that?
A little bit. I mean, Craig's a good driver. There's no denying that. That's why he was where he was. But yeah, it was mainly just focusing on if I could stay on the track, then as long as he doesn't get past me, then I've won again. So being in P1 just helped out with that a lot. I don't think I had exactly really good pace in the dry. I think I was just helped out by race 1 being wet. I think that helped a lot this race.
And I do have to ask, with regards to helping hands, there were a couple of moments where Craig was getting quite close, and we did see a pro or a pro-am suddenly segue the way between the two of you. Did that just put a brief smile on your face, thinking, you know what, Craig's just been pushed back slightly, I don't have to worry for this lap?
Every time I saw a pro or pro-am coming, I was like braking a little bit extra, not too much to like cause a crash or anything, but just enough to back him off slightly towards the pro-am so then they could get in between. So I could get a pro-am or pro in between, and it just gave me a bit of extra help. And then try and let them through on one of the straights and not through a corner.
Well, that's absolutely fair. A classic touring car tactic, no doubt about it. And I'm sure Craig would have been on the other end thinking to himself, you know what, he's backing me up, but that's the way it does go in the NXTCC. And then coming on to race number 3, I mean, you already had 2 wins in the bag, and I can imagine you must have been ecstatic. Then race 3, you're starting P27, and it's another great start. And before we know it, you've already opened up a gap. But there's one problem. There's a fast-charging Audi RS3 in the hands of Sammy Ariba behind you.
Yeah, Sammy was catching quite quickly, and then it got to about halfway through the race, and I'm not sure whether he'd like burnt out his tyres or whatever, but the gap was starting to like stay about the same. But definitely for those first few laps, when I saw the gap just slowly going away and him catching up, I was thinking to myself that he'd overtake me. But at the end of the day, I was just happy to have got 2 wins over 2 wins in AM already, and just a third made it even better.
Well, without a doubt, making it 3 wins out of 3, not just 2 out of 3, is something incredible. We rarely see it in any of the classes, but a well-deserved trio of wins. And with that, it does move you now into P3 in the AM standings provisionally. So you've got to your mark, you're ahead of Jonathan Collins, and it even actually moves you quite close to your teammate Gabriel Yilmaz. There's only now 50 points between the two of you. I mean, you're setting your sights for P3, but surely you've also got to be thinking, if you can carry this on in the final 3 rounds of the championship, could there be the possibility of taking the crown?
Honestly, whatever comes of it, the best. I mean, there's 3 races left. Anything can happen in those 3 races. I could have a terrible 3 races like the rest of the season. So as long as I can score as many points as possible, then obviously try and do what's best for the team as well. If me and Gabriel can both get a 1-2 in AM, then that would be brilliant.
Well, it's all to see and all to play for, and of course we do have an all-new venue next week, which is going to be the host for round number 8, because we're heading to Thruxton for the first time. How are you feeling for the UK's fastest circuit?
When this iRacing season started, the Clio Cup was at Thruxton, and I did that to sort of get an idea of how the track went, because I'd never raced there before, and it really helped out. I think the track next week's going to be a lot of fun, and I think there's going to be a lot of good action, especially from us AMs.
Well, we definitely look forward to it, and look forward to seeing what you're able to achieve, given the momentum you've taken from Montreal today. But just before we do let you go, Lewis, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Obviously, Will in race 2 helping out with getting the first win, and then just the pros and pro-ams that were helping just keep the gap sort of a distance between me and second.
Well, Lewis, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room this evening. Congratulations once again on a phenomenal achievement to make it 3 wins out of 3, and to do so in quite a commanding manner, no doubt about it. I mean, it sets you now on course for P3 in the AM Championship and gives you the chance to take on the top 2. What will you be able to do at Thruxton, we look forward to seeing. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening, and thank you for joining me once again.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
So hearing there from our first interview, Lewis Mason, and I think you can hear it in his voice, whereby the fact he's very proud of what he's achieved, but I don't think the penny's dropped quite what he's been able to do. I think it's one of those moments, it's whereby he's now realising just how big a result today has been. 3 wins out of 3, and well, what a way to do it. Storming into lead in race number 1 with a brilliant start, and also with what was a bit of chaos for his rivals up front who fell out the running order, and by the end of lap 1, just charging into the distance. It wasn't without pressure in all 3 races, it must be said, albeit in race number 1 it came from his teammate William Kurtler, and in the end the 2 held station for a 1-2 finish. But in races 2 and 3 it was Craig Tillerson and Sammy Ariba respectively who chased him down. But when the pressure came to it, Lewis Mason, whether through backing up his rivals into the traffic coming up behind, or alternatively just maintaining the gap, he really was the man destined for great things today, and it was all to see. But could he be destined for greater things at Thruxton? Well, that is the big question that we all would love to have the answer to, but we've got to wait until next week for it. But one thing we don't have to wait for is our second interview of the day. And speaking of interviews, we're now going to come to Lewis Delmont, who gets ready to join me in the interview room, and we get to hear from the younger member of the Delmont family and his perspective on what has been an absolutely brilliant day today, no question about it. And well, 2 top 5s and then a victory. I mean, he couldn't ask for more. But let's hear it from the man himself as he joins me now. Good evening to you, Lewis. And well, firstly, congratulations, not just on what I believe is your first prime win of the season, but also your first ever overall podium as well, added to 2 top 5s. I mean, you must be over the moon.
Thank you, Paul. I am. Finally a really good result. Yeah, I'm over the moon.
Well, given what is the slightly speechless nature of yourself, I can completely understand. You might be absorbing it all slightly at the moment, but let's try and dissect it a little bit. Firstly, I mean, obviously, I think you're situated in the same room as your dad. Your dad must be over the moon with you as well.
Yeah, he's sat right next to me. I've had to tell him to be quiet so he don't come through on the stream.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Well, I think you can be absolutely proud of you. And let's break it down a little bit, starting with qualifying. A qualifying session that caught out many. There was the big question of should you be on wets, should you be on slicks towards the end, and a P26 from yourself, P11 in class. Looked as though qualifying wasn't quite going your way.
Yeah, I've been away all weekend, and the only practice laps I managed to do today was about 7 laps. 7 laps this morning, and then the practice session before the race. So the pace definitely wasn't there in qualifying, but I definitely picked it up a bit during the race, following other people around.
Well, picking up the pace then as you went deeper and deeper into qualifying, that's one way to approach it when you're a little bit light on the practice. But I get the feeling that qualifying practice may have helped, because when we made our way into the races, of course there were a couple of incidents up front, but you made a lot of progress, particularly in race number 1. How was race number 1 for your perspective? Because a P26 start became a P14 finish.
I don't know how it happened, to be honest. I don't feel like I passed that many people, but I think there were just quite a few crashes in front that helped me along. But yeah, it was fun. I don't usually enjoy the rain, but I enjoyed that race.
Well, it looked as though you enjoyed it, but it is the circuit was drying. And then going into race number 2, it was a similar situation, a P5 finishing class, going slightly back into P16. But I get the feeling that was where the pros were coming through, and in the end you might have just settled for a result.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I just, after such a good race 1, I just wanted to hopefully get myself in any form of reverse grid for the race 2 and didn't want to jeopardise it fighting too hard. So yeah, it worked out.
Oh, most definitely. Although I do have to wonder, given the fact we've had this weird trend this season to see low numbers typically appear, or at least low total numbers for the reverse grid, were you worried that P16 may not be enough, despite the fact it's P13 free to P23?
Yes, I was a bit worried, but I managed to get lucky this time. Yeah, very, very happy. Very, very.
So now let's turn things around with regards to your finishing position in race 2 to race number 3. P18 was drawn. That meant you would start P3 on the grid. An all prime front row in front of you, including your teammate Sam Bradley starting on pole. I mean, it's surely the dream scenario. And I have to wonder, what was your goal going into the race? Because we heard from Sam in the build-up to race 3, he wasn't confident on his pace and he was expecting to go backwards. But I suspect you were thinking one thing, which was to go forwards.
Yeah, I wanted to get past into P1 as soon as possible, and my plan was to maybe pull Sam round, but Sam Smith managed to get him coming into the brakes, I think, just after I made the move. Unfortunate, but yeah.
Well, it definitely was a bit unfortunate there, but from that brilliant pass on Sam Smith into turn 1 to get you into P2 and eventually moving into the lead, you went from having one iRacing esports car that you were able to drop to one that never quite let you go, and that was Alan McCain. As we see some of the replay footage here, I mean, Alan was never quite able to get past you, but he never fell away from you.
Yeah, we're just there, keeping me on my toes, making sure I don't make any mistakes. Yeah. Definitely got a bit scary coming towards the end. He managed to get maybe like 3/10 off the back of me, but I managed to get a good exit. So, yeah, the pressure was definitely on, but I managed to pull through.
And also added to that pressure, I mean, at what point were you thinking to yourself, or were you thinking at all, that it's not just the Prime win that's up for grabs here, but this is also an overall podium?
Well, I thought that from the start, whilst I was still sat on the grid.
Well, that's absolutely fair. And I mean, a great result today, and arguably your best set of results for the season in this round, with all 3 top 5s and a win in amongst that. And we've still got 3 more rounds to go. We head to Thruxton next week. And, well, being your first championship season, you're having a solid run, there's no doubt about that. But what can we expect out of you at Thruxton?
Hopefully as good as this week. I've never driven with full weight in the Prime class yet, so I'm just going to see how that goes. But excited, I've done quite a lot of laps around Thruxton, so yeah, excited for next week.
Well, we're excited to see how you get on there, given the fact you'll be likely taking the P9. Well, you'll be P9 in the Prime Championship going into that round, and how high can you climb is the big question. I mean, that's one question we do want to ask you, which is, your P9 currently, you've broken your way into the top 10 in the Pro-Ams. It's very close in the battle for P5. I mean, from Kieran Smart in 5th to currently what is Sam Smith in 11th, it's less than 80 points between you all. Is the top 5 possible, do you think?
Definitely. Well, if I can outdrive everyone else in front of me, hopefully, yeah, that's what I'm aiming for.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you can do to go for that aim at Thruxton. But just before we do let you go, Lewis, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out SRL, NXTGEN, all the other sponsors. Yeah, that's it.
Well, Lewis, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your performances today, particularly that win and overall podium in race number 3. I won't hold you back from celebrating with your dad for any longer. Enjoy it, and we'll see you in a week's time.
Thanks, Paul. See you next week.
So hearing there from a very happy Lewis Delmont, and well, realising what he's been able to achieve so early in his NXTCC campaign, with what is a 3rd place overall and a victory in the Prime class. And what an absolute job he was able to do. And well, you can imagine now going into what was race number 3, he was all with the nerves and whatnot, but in the end able to bring it all together. And well, what a run, without a doubt of it. And with 2 top 5s as well, his best result of the season in terms of a whole round, and now eyeing up what would be a potential top 5 in what could be the Prime Championship when all is said and done. Well, that's going to be a question in terms of whether he's going to be able to maintain those results all the way through to the finish. We've got 3 rounds to go, but momentum definitely seems to be on Lewis Delmont's side. And if he can carry this on, well, the sky's the limit, I would imagine, and he will be pushing hard for it. But, ladies and gentlemen, we come from what was our second interviewee to our final interview of the day, and we're going to be coming to Sammy Ariba very shortly to hear his story on what has been an absolutely brilliant day as well, and well, with regards to what is the Quartermaster Motorsport driver and what has been a rather challenging season. We're going to hear his perspective on why today that challenge has been overcome as he gets ready to join me in the interview room. And as he now proceeds to join me in the interview room, we welcome Sammy Ariba. Good evening to you, Sammy. And well, what a day today. The first 2 races saw you having to battle your way from the back of the AM class. Didn't quite work out in race 1, worked out to agree in race number 2. But then in race number 3, I mean, it was all to play for. A P2 at the close of the AM class, almost the win as well. You might be gutted a little bit, but at the same time as well, one of Quartermaster Motorsport's first AM podiums. Is it all that bad?
Good evening. I'll have to start with that, and thanks for having me on. I'm absolutely ecstatic to be on the podium for the first time for the team. And yeah, it was a bit of a tough one with the 2 races, but the 3rd one worked out for me. Like the saying says, 3rd time lucky.
Well, indeed, 3rd time lucky it is, but let's break it on down bit by bit with regards to the racing and the qualifying tonight. In fact, started off for Quartermaster, we have seen you guys have some rather mixed results this season so far. There have been some great top 5s. There's also been moments where podiums have just gone astray. What's the mood been like in the camp between yourself, Andy, and also Jonathan? Because I can imagine perhaps you've been feeling up to this point, there's been a lot out there you haven't perhaps quite achieved what you've wanted to.
We're all really enthusiastic with the league. Most of us, is our first time with racing with the TCR, so it's quite a big learning curve. And also for me personally, it's my first competitive race series being in. So quite a lot of things to learn, but everyone's really positive, and as we can see, anything can really happen with this kind of series with these kind of vehicles. So we just like to get stuck in every race and see where it takes us.
Oh, well, that's an absolutely brilliant approach to have, no doubt about it. And taking that mentality into what was this race, I mean, well, round, I should say, qualifying a P39 position, P10 in the AM class. Looked as though qualifying was more about just trying to gel with the conditions and get set for race number 1. Take us through from your perspective what it was like.
Well, as soon as I got onto track, and then the surprise of it being wet, I thought I didn't really do much preparation in the wet, so I just had to, as you said, yeah, just try to get stuck in and to try to perform as best as I can with those conditions, and yeah, just went from there.
Well, adjusting to those conditions, and as you made your way deeper and deeper into qualifying, we did see some improvement, but where things started to kick off was in the races. Race number 1, however, wasn't the race you wanted it to be. A P43 finish, multiple laps down as well, P12. Seems as though it was a bit of a rough race.
Yeah, it had a bit of contact, which is just water under the bridge, not really too fussed about that, but yeah, it wasn't a really good race for me, but I tried to just carry on and just try to finish the race and try to grab any points that were left on the table.
Well, grabbing some of those points, some points definitely earned at that point in time, as I stumbled over my words there, but one thing not to stumble over was the fact you made your way forward in race number 2, taking a P18 class and P37. Looked as though things were starting to be a little bit more positive.
Yes, that's correct. So I felt more confident with the conditions. So I tried to just put my head down and try to hit my marks. And again, I think I pushed myself a bit too hard and had a little scrape of the wall, which damaged the vehicle a bit. But yeah, again, I just carried on, just put my head down and tried to finish the race. And yeah.
And I do have to ask out of curiosity, of course, the circuit in race 1 was a drying circuit. There was a light amount of water still on the circuit, but it was mostly dry by the end. Race 2, a fully dry circuit. One of the things that some of our pro drivers were talking about in the build-up to today was the Audi really seemed to struggle to get the power down in the wet, but in the dry, it was an absolute monster. Did you feel that from your perspective, competing with your rivals?
Yeah, that's an excellent way to describe it, yes. In the wet, as soon as you go near the throttle, it just likes to understeer. It's quite yeah, it just pulls a lot from the front, just understeers quite a lot. But once the track was dry, race 2, completely dry, it felt really good. It was doing really well on long straights, and it's got really good acceleration as well. So which helps me through this with the 2 last races.
Well, like you say, definitely helped in race number 2. And going into race number 3, I mean, it was all to play for at that point with all the Anfield not being in the reverse grid. We saw you start P37, but by the end of the open lap, you're already up into the top 5. Looked as though there was a bit of carnage on the start-finish line before drivers even got past the run into turn 1. Where did you find yourself in all of that?
Luckily, all the drama happened in front of me. So luckily, I slipped through that without a scratch, thankfully, and I just had to put my head down and just carry on pushing through the pack.
And did exactly that. And as we look back at some of the replay footage where you were chasing after the likes of Eduardo Gonzaga, chasing after the podium, you cleared them, albeit towards the end of the race. It looked as though you were starting to close up on Lewis Mason, and then from Lewis's perspective, he was mentioned only moments ago, it was almost as if you hit a bit of a cliff in the final couple of laps. Was that what happened from your perspective? Because you were 7 tenths behind him at one point, and then the gap opened up to 1.2 seconds, and it never quite came down as much as perhaps you would have liked in the end.
Yeah, I started to push a bit too hard, I was thinking, and then I just thought I might throw this race away if I carried on pushing out like I was. So I just backed off and gave him a bit of space and just wanted to finish the race, to be honest. And I'm happy with the P2, and yeah.
Well, definitely a good approach to have there. Consolidate the points and take a podium. I mean, it's a great result, even if it's not a win. It must feel like a win to some, yourself included. And speaking of winning here, the fact that you picked up these points today means you move to P5 in the AM Championship. We've still got 3 rounds to go. It's all to play for in the AM class at the moment. Have you set your sights on a particular finishing position, or are you just rolling with the wind on this one?
With this one, it's just rolling with the wind. It's my first league. The first time being in the league, so I'm just going to roll with the wind and see where it takes me.
Well, that's absolutely fair. And, well, we head to Thruxton in a week's time, the fastest circuit in the UK. Can we expect some magic from yourself, or we just got to wait and see how it goes?
I will do my very, very best. I'll do my utmost, and hopefully I can do something like today's race, and hopefully be talking to you with a good story again.
Well, I'll definitely hold your slacks. We'd love to hear and see a good story for yourself, Savvy, at Thruxton. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
To you and to the league, NXTGEN, for putting this all together. To the race team, everyone back at base, supporting me. To Andy being a great wingman and helping me through this. To family and friends that are watching as well, big shout out to them. And yeah, thank you very much.
Well, Sammy, we should be saying a big thank you for you joining us in the interview this evening. Well done on what has been a great set of performances, particularly in races 2 and even more so in race number 3. We look forward to plenty more from yourself at Thruxton and hope to have the pleasure of speaking to you again there. But until then, well done once again. Thank you for joining me and have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thank you very much. See you. Bye-bye.
So they're hearing from our final interview of the day, Sammy Ariba, the AM class driver from Quartermass Motorsport. And talking about the fact there that really just getting to grips with the Audi over the course of qualifying and then heading into race number 1, even though the circuit was dry and having that difficulty in getting the power down, the car just wanting to understeer as soon as he applied the throttle. But in race 2, with a much drier circuit, the car started to hook up and that's where we saw the progress. But even more so in race number 3, there was some chaos in front that opened up the floodgates to enable him to move into the top 5, but still he had to do the work to get into P2, and then it was all about chasing down Lewis Mason. But mentioned there as well, as he got closer, he was pushing himself harder and harder and was concerned about potentially binning a key result. So in the end, settling for P2, letting the race come to an end, and with that moving to P5 in the AM Class Championship. Well, given how tight the AM Class is becoming now as we head towards the tail end of the season, that's no surprise there. I think Mr. Ariba has got the right approach, which is just simply let the results fall and take the points, because you never know how important those points could be come the season finale at Bathurst, and particularly with the unpredictability in the weather this season so far, those points could make the difference when the final checkered flag falls. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that's the conclusion of our interviews. We've heard from our 3 drivers there, and to call them out again, we firstly heard from our AM Class triple winner for today, Lewis Mason for Aztec Racing. We then heard from our Pro AM Class driver, Lewis Delmont for SO and NXTGEN Gold, who took his first Pro Am win and with it his first overall podium to add to 2 top 5 finishes, his best result of the season. And then we've just heard from the number 99 driver from Quartermass Motorsport, the AM driver, Sammy Ariba, very happy with his P2 in the AM Class in the final race of the day, and also his growth in results as the day went on. Congratulations to all 3 of them, and thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room. But with that, of course, we now have the big question of how does the championship shape up with 3 rounds to go? Well, provisionally, we start off with the top 15 overall in the Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, Mikey Doble leads still, but now leading by a growing advantage on 764 points to 687 at Jaroslaw Cebula. And with 1 drop score applied here, we can see how big a dent that Doble has done. And can you imagine if things had gone the way he wanted in race number 2 and some further progress in race number 3, how big that gap could have been going to Thruxton? Still, Cebula's hopes are still alive, albeit you'll notice now the fact that with that gap growing, we need to see Cebula strike back at Thruxton, as otherwise Mikey Doble may have the opportunity to seal the deal in round number 9 with a round to spare. In P3, Benjamin McCluskey, he's moved into third place once again, only 3 points ahead of teammate Jamie Dory. NXTGEN Pink putting in a very consistent run of results across their 2 drivers, but they are only in turn the best part of what is 17 points ahead of Andrew Pike, who, despite a difficult start to today, has managed to bring a great score out of it, particularly with a redemptive race number 2. In P6, only a further 3 points behind, it's Adam Delmont, and the key theme here is you can see how close it is getting for that third place spot, and potentially Cebula is falling back into the clutches of that, and we could be seeing a 4, 5, 6-way fight for P2, if not P3. And speaking of a member in that 6-way fight, it would be William Guthrie on 536. Dan Mould falls to P8 on 484, with a day to be forgotten about after what was a half-decent race number 1, but a race 2 and 3 that just did not go his way whatsoever. And then completing the top 10, Nick Clemens ahead of Isaac Doble, and young Isaac there, 63 points for that win in race 1, but it wasn't to be in race 2 nor 3 after that difficult end to race number 2, and I can imagine that it will feel a bittersweet day for the Doble Sim Racing driver. Still, on 443 points, he is the best part of what is there, 21 ahead of Lee Horn, who again, after that brilliant qualifying session, let it all go of a jump start in race number 1, and from there, things tumble down the order. But still for Lee Horn, he can still make a load of points in the last 3 rounds of the season. But he's 2 ahead of Gavin Gardner, and then we do have Ben Altrier and Stuart Winnis both on 402 points, with a leading Prime driver there, only a single point ahead of Alex Meredith. We then come to the Prime class, and as we can see here in the Prime standings, Stuart Winnis leads still, but his advantage has been cut to Reece Watt, and indeed that gap now standing at what is only 26 points, and Watt once again, despite the difficulties in race number 3 not scoring any points, really demonstrating what happens when you just keep the points coming, as whilst Winnis has scored a bit more today, with the consistency we have seen from Watt over the course of the season, he is well and truly in the hunt. Ben Gregory doing it the other way in terms of his performances have grown as the season has gone on, and therefore for Ben Gregory now into P3 on 736 points, we have a tantalising 3-way fight, or should we say 4-way fight for the title, because Russell Fowler on 710 points will again today as well bring home that win in race 2, added to the consistency of races 1 and 3. He's one who cannot be counted out of the potential clutches of the trophy. And then Kieran Smart in P5 on 663 points, previously admitting at Knockhill that he feels like the results earlier in the season may have just pushed him slightly out of reach of the championship, but he could become a key player in the hunt for the top 3. Sam Van Olst is now 2 points behind Smart. Smart moves into P5 for the first time this season, and Michael Lees falls to P7 there despite a better race 3 compared to his first 2 races. Alan McCain only a further 4 points adrift, and it's the further 3 to Lewis Delmont, who has catapulted his way into P9 as a result of that victory in class in the final race of today. And Matthew Sheraton sits in P10, ruining what could have been if he hadn't had the technical issues going to the grid in race number 1. Sam Smith sits best to SP11, but the key point you can see here just how close it is in that run towards P3, if not for the top of the standings. And it really is anybody's game inside this top 10 or just out of it in the Prime class. And well, all of the drivers could have a massive impact. Even Sam Bradley, who today I think outperformed his own expectations to take that P12, and on 547 points, can he go any higher? Duncan Rise, meanwhile, not on the grid today. 0 points scored. He falls to P13 ahead of Jake Pitt. And it's James Mazesgow who complete the provisional championship standings. We then come to the AM class, the last of our drivers' championship standings, but by no means least. And Marcel Fritsch leads on 789 points, but a slight reduction in his advantage to Gabriel Yilmaz on 743. And most prominently there, with 3 victories, Lewis Mason jumps up to P3. And the Aztec racing pair of Yilmaz and Mason will be very keen to try and bring down the Verano Academy driver Marcel Fritsch. However, Fritsch has got a very strong foundation in his championship campaign, and both Yilmaz and Mason will be hard-pressed to make a good impression on it. Jonathan Collins, not on the grid today, falls to P4, but we can expect him back next week to try and chase down the top 3. He's ahead of Sammy Ariba by what is there the best part of 17 points. And then we do have Josh Brown, who wasn't in the grid as well. He's down to P6, but ahead of Eduardo Gonzaga by 20 points, who put on some brilliant battling today, the National Racing Team driver. Mark Sykes sits in P8 ahead of Sean Dobie, and then Craig Tillison completes the top 10 on 516 points. He's only 5 behind Sean Dobie, and in turn 5 ahead of Andy Shell, as the fight for the final spots in the top 10 continues to intensify in the AM class, with Dylan Hunter P12 not quite getting the results he wanted today, but we saw a lot of momentum, and I definitely think the DH Racing driver is taking that momentum taking that momentum from Knockhill and embracing it to the full. And then to wrap up the AM standings, it's Kevin Smith, ahead of Jonathan Berry, with Gabriel Papaconstantou and Mike Kurtler. I do believe that should be William Kurtler there. We'll then come on to the team's championship standings. These are the top 10 provisionals, and as we can see, after 7 rounds and no drop scores applied to the team's championships as far as I'm aware, NXTGEN Pink continue to hold their lead, and in fact it has grown slightly once again to now 513 points over Doble Sim Racing. SRL in NXTGEN meanwhile sit a little bit further back, the SRL NXTGEN Gold team now at 565, so Doble Sim Racing have reclaimed their P2, but this back and forth between the two teams is definitely not going away. The same can be said in terms of not going away for Full Tilt B Motorsport. They sit in P4 and they're only at where's the best part of a further 97 points behind, and they've got a comfortable gap of almost 200 points, in fact just over 200 points to the Sim Racing Collective. But notice there in the fight for P5, they in turn are only what is the best part of 32 points ahead of both NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners and iRace Esports, with NXTGEN Orange Whiskey Runners only ahead based on result countback. Goldwyn Motorsport as well, a further 47 points adrift. The fight for P5 is now between what is their 5 teams, because we also need to include Track Scotland in the equation, and why don't we also include Aztec Racing there, albeit they're on the fringes, but they could be the sixth contingent in that battle, as meanwhile JWM Motorsport have fallen outside the top 10 as of today, but you can be assured they're going to be back in full force in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it does mean it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the NXTGEN racing community, or about how you can be on the grid for future seasons of the NXTCC, well, for all that and more, we definitely recommend firstly checking out our official website, and that's at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And as we do bring our website up on screen for you, where's the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, and as we continue to charge into 2025, there has never been a better time to become a member of the NXTGEN racing community. Whether you are rookie all the way through to a fully fledged esports professional, there is a place for you here on the grid at NXTGEN. But if you don't want to go to our website, perhaps you're more of a social media person, well, you can of course follow us on Facebook. That's the #1 place to go to, our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, where you can find out a little bit more about the guys and girls who make up the NXTGEN racing community, including our staff and admin members who are not just working behind the scenes on the simulator, but also working in the world of real life motorsport, with a good number of our members being where's track marshals, if not real life racing drivers. We'd like to take a moment as well to say a big thank you to our sponsors, without whom this would not be possible, including PowerMaxed, Next Level Racing, Mark Sykes Designs, Joyce Design, Douglas Motorsport, Sam Cases UK, Only Racing, Falconer PC Builds and Support, Benji Sim Photos, and of course, last but not least, our title sponsor for this season, and we love to have our continued partnership with Doble Motorcycles, because if you are looking to buy your next two-wheeled machine or ATV, why not make it one of the Power of Dreams, the infamous H-Badge from Honda, and why not consider Doble Motorcycles? Because as the UK's leading Honda motorcycle dealer, you won't find a better place to get your next two-wheel machine powered by Dreams. And if you do want to know more about the family-run business, which will give you excellent customer service from lights out to checkered flag, do head to their website at doble.co.uk today. That website again, doble.co.uk. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attentions to what is round number 8 of the championship, and set the date, Tuesday the 28th of January 2025, we embark to the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom. The Thruxton circuit will welcome our drivers for the first time in the NXTCC's history. The racing will be intense, the margins will be minimal, and who will come out of the racing at Thruxton knowing they're going down under with the advantage of the final 2 rounds in Australia? Well, for all that and more, tune in next time for round number 8 of the championship. But until then, we have been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, that's all from us here at NXTGEN Racing, the home of clean and fair sim racing for all.